Belfast. Okay.
Gosh, what a taskmaster. Okay, yeah. Welcome to the Art Agents 24, is it? Pod 24. And it's the secrets of oil painting today. Now, are there secrets? I guess that every oil painter has a secret because everyone has. There's a billion techniques. There's a billion techniques. So practically everything that you can step off from the main how to blend and stuff is a secret because it's such micro decisions made with every oil painting. So feel free to ask a million questions, especially since if you were already oil painting, you'll find these micro problems and you'll go, I had this problem, and I'll be able to solve it for you, I'm sure. We'll see. It's quantum. It could go on forever and ever, and you go, hold on, there's another micro problem I've never seen before. But I think I've seen most of them. But welcome to the Art Agents. It's Rachel and Melanie on the left,
Hello. Howdy. Howdy.
and it's a Cade Mila Fatcho for me. And let me do that again. I'll do it with a brogue. Okay, Mila Falcha. All right, so there's 100,000 welcomes for you, all the way from Ireland, via Australia, via Virginia, and we're off and running. Right, so I'll start the pod. And Rachel, Melanie, feel free to ask questions as well. I'm going to go over my favorite paintings
Okay.
and, and some recent ones as well. I was just talking before the pod started with Rachel and Melanie about there's certain paintings that I've talked about a lot, so I'll talk about paintings I've talked less about, but I'll still bring those ones up and talk less about them. Okay, so let's have a look. Oh, I guess we could start here. All right, so what am I doing here? I got to put you guys in the corner. All right. Now, this was quite a thing. It was 10 years ago that I wrote this book, Oil Painting Techniques, and I've reissued it now with new stuff in it. So there's a lot of stuff in here that we could talk about. I'll just scroll in just to begin with. So what we could talk about, there's a load of ways you can start a painting. And it depends how advanced you are. If you're just starting oil paintings for the first time, I would recommend you just start with a very small set of colors and do an underpainting. That would be my best advice for you.
What paint specifically, as far as like brand, if you were just starting with
Rachel,
oils?
this is where I'm really conservative. I started with oil paints a long time ago, and there was very little choice. America has a massive amount of choice, but we didn't. We basically had, here's your Winsor and Newton, take it or leave it. That's all we had. The good news is that Winsor and Newton are a fantastic brand. And so I picked them up. They did the job, and I went, these are fantastic. And then I thought, these are very expensive paints for my budget back then. And there was another set of paints. I think they were Winsor and Newton as well. I think they were called Cotton or Winton or something like that. I'm worried that I just said Winton and they're not a cheap brand, but I think they were called Cotton or something. But they were a cheaper brand. And I thought, well, I'll buy them. And I bought them and I started painting with them. And boy, did it really hurt the painting, especially with the blues, the purples. When you tried to thin them down, they just became soot floating in oil. And it was a bit like a cheap tin of beans. You know, you get premium Heinz beans and you open it and there's all beans right to the top, and then you buy a cheaper brand and you go, it's the same size tin. You
Yeah.
open it and you pour out a half a pint
Yeah,
of
just filled with
tomatoes.
oil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what the oil paintings were like too. And so I went, you know what, never again. It just wasn't worth it. It was a false economy. And so I bought the more expensive Winsor and Newton, and they're actually considered a cheap paint. But I have never had any trouble with them. I've got Rembrandt here now and other ones, but I still reach for the Winsor and Newton because they're comfortable. So I've got a
Yeah.
load of really expensive paints here, but I rarely open them. It's like a special occasion, like a Christmas or something. And I've got three that a friend gifted me. I can't wait to use them, but they seem so precious. And it also depends on the number too. So you can look at the numbers. I was in the art store the other day. You can see the painting in the background that I've just finished. Well, the painting's never finished. But I went in and I hadn't painted for 3 years. And I went into the store to buy oil painting can dry up. I had some oil paintings were dried up because I'm in a subtropical country. And the woman warned me. She says, you do realize that this is a Series 6 and it's going to cost you $100. It's only for a little tube that size. I says I'm over the shock because I am. I know a
Put
Series
that
6 when I
back.
see it. Well, that's it. They must have it all the time. They didn't want to waste time in the register with the paper and stuff, you know? So, yeah, it must be such an old shop, isn't it? They have paper roll. I guess they always give you a receipt, don't they? Anyway, she told me that. But what shocked me was the tube of titanium white, which is a Series 1, which is the cheapest you can get. So the umbers are Series 1, the white Series 1, the blacks Series 1. It's very easy to get started with a Series 1 set of paints, but if you're on a budget and you don't want to be embarrassed at the cash register, check the series number. That's the first thing. Let's say you're Daddy Warbucks, you got tons of money. Those Series 6 will last you a lifetime. They're the opposite of a false economy because you can thin them so far down that really you could make 40 tubes of student paint out of them.
And as for
So they're
thinner, sorry, you just use Gamsol, right? Have you used any other thinners?
I used to use nothing but turpentine,
Yeah,
and to be honest, it's the best. There's nothing can beat it.
it's not good for
But
your health though.
it's not good, and I was getting sick, and I stopped using it. I remember Stephen Hickman, a friend of mine, and he's just passed recently, and he had a whole system of like a Dr. Zeus funnel all the way through a studio and out the window. And I thought, boy, that's a lot of fuss, isn't it? He had it on the rag, on the actual rag. So he was worried about two things, a fire starting, which isn't the turpentine, by the way, which I thought it would have been for sure. It's the linseed oil. So the linseed oil can combust in a dry place. If you live in Texas, for instance, linseed oil is a dangerous thing to have in your studio on a rag. It can just combust. It's never happened to me, but I had a friend in New York, and that's not a hot place, not generally anyway, not a dry place. And he rang me up. He says, "Jones, you nearly set my house on fire," because I told him my medium were linseed oil and turpentine. The first day he used linseed oil, the rag went up in flames
Oh my god.
and nearly set his wooden house on fire. And it never happened to me. He just got an unlucky spark
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
just bad luck.
It was just bad luck, but it woke me up.
Yeah.
So I've thrown the turpentine away. Frank Frazetta used turpenoid, and he reckoned that's what killed him. Uh, well, he didn't say it from the grave. You know, he got
Yeah,
really
yeah,
sick. Says, "Is this turpenoid?" And then he died. He lived quite a while after it.
yeah,
And we were very resilient, but you don't want the health problems.
yeah. He was a
Like a
healthy
guy,
guy.
exactly. He was a healthy guy already, so that probably held off the death longer than most. Boy, how did we get so nihilistic?
I'm sorry. But I recently bought some walnut oil. Have you ever tried that?
That's what I use. That's my
Okay,
favorite.
sweet. All right, all
That's
right.
my favorite. In fact, I just went to the art store the other day. Let me see what I just picked up. Patrick's Cabinet of Curiosities.
What has he got in there?
So, what did I pick up yesterday? No, I didn't pick up the walnut oil. I've already got that. Oh, there's the refined linseed oil. So, I'll still use that in the early stages because it's actually it's lovely. You know, it's just a nice thing. And it's much cheaper than walnut oil. And it dries faster, even though it's a slow dryer. Now, I've picked this up, but I haven't used it. It's Liquid Fine Detail. I picked that up the other day because I
Oh,
started with Liquid.
what is
So
that?
that's a dryer.
Okay. Well,
And it doesn't take much. Now, what I used to do was buy Liquid all the time and then discovered that Liquid dries in the bottle because it's a dryer. And so you basically pay for that much. And by the time you get to here, it's all just goop. So I stopped using it and I got another product. I got Galkid Light.
all
Now,
right.
now look at now look at the color of it.
Yeah, it's red.
It used to be this color. See that?
Oh, okay.
So, so even that has dried over time. So I always go for the light because it lasts longer, even though that one is pretty much, I can't use the bottom of it anymore. I can.
Yeah.
I can poke a hole in it with a brush handle and I'll pour some liquid out from it. But by that point, it's not Galkid Light anymore. It's just the regular Galkid, which is a bit too thick. So
And
this stuff
at what
thins.
point of the process do you use the drying agent?
I use it all the time because if I'm going to work on a painting day after day, it has to be dry the next day. And because I'm working so thinly, look how thin I'm working. Look, you can see the pencil. Do you see the pencil underneath there? And that's pretty much almost full-bodied paint now. You know, if I had that pencil much lighter, you could almost finish the painting at that stage. So the painting is finished at any stage. And to be honest, a painting at this stage has got so much energy in it. It can only go downhill a little bit. I mean, this is probably closer to what Frank Frazetta did. He would stop before before he ruined it. But I'm in a position now where a collector's buying my work because of the finish they see in previous paintings, and so that's the finish they're expecting. But I'll never better see this point, this portion right here. That never gets better than that. In fact, I love that right there. I wish I had the guts to just leave that as it is, right there, and that sword, the whole thing. And you can see why, as artists get older, they like to do less and less of the finishing stage because all the energy is in the beginning. They're always. I mean, look at that sword edge; it's just gorgeous, and that's painted in a day. So you can see that. Well, not the whole thing. Let's say I could paint that in 3 days, finish that painting in 3 days, using that kind of method.
And when you
So
say
in
a
fact,
day, like what does that look like?
a day looks like him finished at this stage.
Okay, is
That's
that like how many hours or like how what are you doing with that day? Like when what time are you starting in the morning and then what time do you decide this is where I'll come back to?
Rachel, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed.
Oh
Here's,
gosh.
here's the way it was. I talked
Okay.
to Boris a long time ago, and I didn't want to confess to anyone that I was such a workaholic. But he said to me he used to work 16 hours a day, and so did I.
Yeah, because you can
And
still sleep for
I,
8.
yeah, that's right. So you're in that mindset too.
Yeah.
You know, that was a terrible waste of life because I should have been enjoying life. And I did enjoy life because when I stopped painting, I went berserk. It's like a mad person dancing on the stage, tearing up London, all that stuff I did on the weekends. But I was in my 20s, so I could do that. I could get drunk as a hog and then still turn up for work the next day and start painting again.
Yeah.
I can't do that anymore. So a painting used to take me, let's say, time-wise, this is an often asked question. A painting there's my hands, right? A painting that size, which was Frank Frazetta's painting size, 18 by 24. That generally would take me 12 days to finish. So when Frank Frazetta said he did a painting in a couple of days, I believe him because
Yeah.
he never took it to that finish. So if I painted that size for 3 days and left it at this kind of stage here, it'd definitely be finished. So I believe him 100%. So he was working with the idea of an optical blend, which means if I reduce this, let's have a look. Whoop, good Lord. If I, oh, where did it go? Oh, oh, where did it go? It's up there. If I reduce that, it starts to blend by itself. So he was working for boot jackets. See that? So you'll see the pencil, that would have to be thinner. But that's blend in itself because by the time it reduces down to uh, what was it? 6 by 4, 6 by 4 inches, it it looked like it was blended. And all those guys worked like that. Leyendecker and all those fellows, they let the paint just not blend really. And the optics would take care of that. In fact, if you blended too much, and I learned this in the very early days, and then it was reduced down to 6 by 4, it looked so soft and fuzzy, it was almost sickly looking, it was like a chocolate box cover. And a guy came into the studio one day, more experienced than me, and he had a really rough looking painting. And by that point, we had bought a reducing lens to stop us over blending, which is the opposite of a magnifying glass. And I took it onto his painting, and we all gathered around and went, "Wow, look at that! That's the secret right there." It looked fantastic in the reducing lens, and that reducing lens was passed around the studio like gold. We all took it, reducing lens, just to make sure we don't overdo it and waste time as well. So there you go. There's probably a secret. I'll pass it out there. Rachel, Melanie, have you ever heard of an reducing lens?
No, I've
No.
never.
Is that kind of the same thing as like blurring your vision and looking at something?
It's not actually, Melanie, because if you blurred your vision, you still get that softness. The optical reduction in the lens was still sharp,
Hmm.
but it was reduced to the point where you could see it. Like if you walked back across the room to try and make a 6 by 4 by being far away from it, our lenses aren't strong enough to really define the detail that you would pick up with a 6 by 4 book. But with the reducing lens, you could look at it like it's a 6 by 4 book. It's still sharp, but it's smaller. So it's a different thing. So basically, it was an essential tool because the art director, you can't say to him, "Go and stand at the back." You bring your painting, and he said, "Don't come any closer. Stay there. Here's the painting. You can't look at it any closer than that. That's not going to fly." So the optical lens, and that's what the art directors did, though. They'd look at it close first, though, and then to step to the back of the room to see how it would be on the book jacket. So that was a brilliant tool. You know what? I'm going to buy one again for myself because I've overblended that picture there, and I've just sent it. The reason I can show it in the background there is I've just sent it to the collector. So it's a big deal for me not to show anyone anything until the collector's seen it. So that's good practice. So remember, you have to have good practice as well. And I often think in business that good faith is the best thing you can have. There's nothing worse than bad faith. You never treat anyone badly because it'll come back round to you again. You never step on the other fellow. Lift everyone up. It works, and it's not even a strategy because it works, it's because it makes you feel good. I feel better as a human being. So I'll be able to show you a little bit of that because I just sent it to Ryan the collector. And let me find, I sent him a little preview. And here's the thing too, that things have changed. In the old days, I'd have to go and get this photographed, scanned by a professional and send it as a preview. And by that point, if they get the preview and go, "I don't like it," you got to go back and paint it again and then send it to the photographer. You can imagine the expense of that, right? Just to show someone something. And now we've all got phones. I just took an iPhone video of it, like this.
Yeah.
Because what they do at heritage auctions where they sell original paintings is they're not really allowed to sell it based on reproduction. What they do is they photograph it warts and all. So they photograph a high res of the actual painting with the hairs in it, the brush strokes. Now, if you saw Frank Frazetta up close, honestly, it looked like the cat rolled over it. So they want to make sure that the collector doesn't get shocked because they're used to looking at a touched up book jacket. So you get to see the whole thing if there's a scratch in it or all that stuff. So that's what I'm sending the collector now. I'm sending a video. Would you like to see it? What I sent the collector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So so that's a preview. That's a preview I send. Let me just find it in here. So here's art agents I've made today. Oh, there's Stephen. Just a shout out for Stephen. That's Stephen Hickman. And he was just such a brilliant painter. If you don't know Stephen Hickman, go look at his work. He's not with us anymore. I could tell he was ill there. You can see it, really. But I didn't know how ill he was. And I'm wondering, was it anything to do with that, with those toxins? I don't know. So there's
I gotta
Stephen.
wonder about some of that.
You got to. And
Yeah.
that's why I only use this, Gamsol.
Yeah. And it seems
I've
like
no
there's
feeling.
always stuff like that where it's like in a few generations we realize it's like
Yeah.
like they used to like give beer to babies and stuff. It's like we don't know.
It's right. Well, they still do that up north. I've seen that. Give the
Oh,
baby booze.
Really?
I've seen drunken babies up when I used to live
yeah.
up in Burnley and
Maybe
north
it
of
does
England.
something for them.
It sends them to sleep.
Yeah,
Yep. So
yeah. Could be like a secret we don't
Gamsol.
know about. Yeah, they're trying to keep it from
Yeah.
us.
Is that the same label you guys have?
No, that
Because
is not.
Gamsol it did not exist here, and then it did.
Yeah, ours. I don't have the bottle, but it's just like black and white. I think.
Probably this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's what we
Yeah,
got.
that's why I was very suspicious of this one because I'm wondering is it the same? Oh, it is still gambling. Yeah. What a difference! People don't realize what a difference bad design is. It cost no more to print that label than to print this horrible one here. And to me, that looks like a half-price version.
Yeah, it
And all
does.
it
That's
is
like the
just,
Dollar Tree
doesn't it?
version.
It's kind of like a
It
soda,
does,
like
doesn't
a
it?
probiotic soda.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And that's why, we're so important. You know? That is what I wanted on the shelf. It wasn't there, so I got this just as a backup. Now, this stuff, they say it's not dangerous, but I wouldn't drink it. And it doesn't give me headaches. There's no doubt about that. So it works. I'll take the top off that and can't smell a thing. But look at that black line.
What do you think that
Weird.
is?
Well, that's me not opening the bottle for a couple of years.
It's just eating
So
away.
Where did that go? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they say these are tight, not enough. So I'll be taking that out of the studio.
Yeah, it's doing something.
It's doing something. Okay, so what was I doing in here?
What is this painting you're working on?
Oh yeah, I was going to show you what I sent to the
Mm-hmm.
collector. Let me see. I think it's down here. Let's have a look. So
Is this
this is a
some?
lot of stuff that I've gathered together. Yeah, so this is the first time I've done this. I usually photograph it. I promised Ryan, he's called Ryan, he's a fabulous guy from New York. I promised Ryan a preview by Monday, and I just keep tinkering. I just keep tinkering all the time. And so I thought, I promised it. Like I say, good faith is really important to me. I promised it. I've got to get the preview. And I thought, video it. You know, they say necessity is the mother of invention. It really is. And so I went through sheer necessity, just film it. Because that's very close to what the heritage auctions do is they just take the direct shot of it in harsh light to see what it looks like. The thing is though that these iPhones they compress it, so it's not really an accurate picture of it because the colors on that are amazing. Whereas it's flattened all these out. I'll just play it. So this is what I've sent to Ryan.
Oh, this is exciting.
So
Grand
yeah, I just
reveal.
work.
Yeah, he's cool already.
So I just went across there.
Lots of
Can you
nice
hear
little
the
birds in the
Can you hear
background.
the me talk?
Yeah, a little bit.
Tends to flatten everything, but it's a fair estimate, and it's a B. So
Something.
knees, get down on my knee. Then so, like I say, the colors will really stun you when you see them. Back, I'll tinker with a little tiny bit, but it's done. Small details, so then just touch up. Let's see, that's gone. Really look incredible. The big frame. There we go. Okay, thanks for the
And this
privilege.
is the space you sit and paint in too, or are you just displaying it here?
So,
Yeah, no, this is where I did it.
Okay.
And so it used to be a case of I'll build another place downstairs, and which I did do for a while, but it was so depressing down there and the light wasn't very good. And I like it here, it's cozy. So what I did is when you become more and more experienced at this stuff, you don't make a mess like you used to. I used to have paint on my face. Every time I go to the bathroom to be paint on my nose I didn't know about. People would laugh and say, "What's that on your face?" And then after a while, you don't get it anywhere at all. I remember seeing a picture of John Singer Sargent in a full tweed suit painting. I thought that's just for the camera, but I don't think it was. Because another painter says if you can't paint in a full suit, then you're not a good enough painter. That's just, you think those guys were above all that ego stuff, but they weren't. But it's true. So I just took a cloth, just a builder's cloth, like a painter's cloth, and I just draped it across that cabinet there and used those little ornaments just to hold it at the top. That's all it required. And I never dropped a single spot of paint anywhere. Not a single thing. So it wasn't a big deal to go over and paint on that thing. But here's the thing, that preview is, I would say, 10% of what that painting looks like. It looks dry, it looks rough, it's beautifully blended. The colors are just super. When you see what a cadmium looks like, an actual cadmium, it's just gorgeous. So the colors aren't quite there. I'm still touching that up. I'll still do it. But another thing you've got to remember as well that painting, no matter how tight the drawing is, if you can't draw, the paint is covering that drawing very quickly. And if you change things, the wheels can fall off in a second. Well, they do. And if you can't recover the drawing again, which you can't, it's gone, you start going, it gets worse and worse and worse. Whereas I want my painting to get better and better. So if I bring up the reference for this guy doesn't have abs like that. He does. It's Rajiv. But in that particular pose, he didn't. He can exhale or, he falls flat or something. He just didn't have the definition, but the pose was good. And so I had to redefine Rajiv. I had to do it. There's many ways to do that. You could, you can enhance. Show you a little bit behind the scenes. Now, can I? It's a new master's photo. Maybe I can't. So it's New Masters photo. It's when I went to New Masters and taught the class there, and I posed Rajiv in all these poses. So I really wanted to use some of the poses in the paintings. And so I had Rajiv hit this pose and give him a prompt, you're being attacked for, at that point it wasn't this, but it was about mermen and stuff. But you can readapt it, being attacked for being the guy that flies. So somebody's jealous. Oh, is someone jealous? The king wants to know how you fly. So they send out a mercenary. That kind of thing. Have a little story. And so I had two Rajivs. So I had to change the face, for instance, of this that looks nothing like Rajiv. I had to change the face, had to enhance it. Some of this stuff here, the ribs and things didn't exist in the in
Yeah,
the photo in the
I like the
photograph.
design of all the jewelry going around them. That's looks really cool.
Well, that's a good point there, Rachel. And I think that's the difference. I was watching a painter this morning, and he's been painting for years and years and years, right? Forever. And I thought he really knows his business. He really knows all this. He knows everything we're talking about. And yet the painting wasn't alive. No matter how much he puts into it and how much theory he has, the painting wasn't alive. So there's something else. And it's what you guys have. It's the eye to see movement. It's the eye to see that it's not a figure and a background and a bird's wing. It's everything when you get all those elements together. How do they all live together? And how do you compose it so that everything's at the light? The birds coming across the scene, they're giving a sense of depth and scale to that mountain. Little decisions. The swirl on that mountain. First of all, it's what a wonderful thought to be in a fantasy world where gold is so abundant. And a vein of gold isn't this tiny little thing that you go, yippee, and put it in the potter and get a couple of dollars for it. Look at the abundance of the gold. Imagine if you could find that, you found that kingdom. But it creates an element, it creates a lovely swirl around this guy. And also put him in darkness so that the background is, you know what it's like when you guys go out in the wild, don't you? When you suddenly come into a little clearing and there's a shadow over you, and if you look behind, it's brilliant. It's brilliant gold. And you're suddenly darkened by this, just by the sheer fact that that's so brilliant. Our optics see us a little darker. And so I paint for the human eye, not for photography. So I think, what was that like? That beautiful thing. And also that aura, that little corona of eclipse of the sun, that gold that suddenly comes from the shadow, from the Terminator shadow. That wasn't in the photograph, but that's how I remember things when I was out camping in and out in the, that golden can be the morning or the afternoon, that golden shadow change into blazing light. That stuff I love. So that goes in the painting. So this guy that was talking about painting had none of that in the picture at all. It was just like he had the reference, he copied the reference and carried on, copied the reference, put it all together. And it just looked like that. It looked, you could read the picture the way he put it together. You could read it in the picture. You don't want to see the cogs turning. You just want to see the painting and be totally involved in it. It's a big spiel, wasn't it?
I liked it.
Yeah,
That was
that was
great.
awesome.
Yeah, that
Now,
was great.
are there any questions from Rachel, Melanie, or the audience?
I don't think so. People are just really liking this painting.
Mm-hmm.
I like the
Oh,
rhythms going across it because if you have detail across the entire thing, it's like it's screaming at you. But you
that's a
like
good call.
you pick those little like glitters going across. There's like a big shape, and then like a smooth shape and a hard shape, and all that makes like different rhythms and different gradients going across it. Yeah,
That's
this one's really cool.
That's right. And we're going to see Rachel's work in a while. Rachel works on a wonderful series called Moth and Spike, and I have some examples of it here. And I'm looking at one right now, and really just that by coincidence. Let's have a look at that one.
Oh God, it's gonna be a shock. It's like looking at that. Oh my God, it's like
So there's
such a
Moth and
difference.
It's brilliant.
Yeah,
Well, it's
thank you.
art should be different. Art should be different from one person to the other. Look at the movement in this that Rachel has. Let me see what I'll actually analyze
Yeah,
this one. I love
completely
it.
different style. Still thinking about rhythms here.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk about it, Rachel? But it
uh,
has what Rachel was just talking about in my artwork and this.
yeah,
Tell us
yeah.
about it, Rachel.
Well, it's not such a serious theme. But I want this big scary monster chasing these gang of fools, and so how do you put that into a picture? It's like you make the monster big and dark and over top of it and taking up half the frame. And then you like how do you guide the eye around that? And so everything is kind of communicating with the thing next to it. And the thing like people also pay attention to like where the eyes are looking, so that's like something else I'm thinking
Yeah.
about is where everyone's looking and that how that draws people's attention around it. And you do a lot of stuff like that, the little shapes dancing around and like the grass moving behind them the way it is, and you kind of get some of that animated feel in it when you do like when you draw like that. And so I try to do that a lot when I draw with
Yeah,
any materials.
it's gorgeous. And what you have there as well, Rachel, is something that's lost, it's going to be lost very quickly, is that the more you draw, the better you get and the more fluid you become. And I was looking at AI, because I don't hide behind rocks and stuff. I want to go and see what this thing is.
Oh yeah, I like
So I,
watching it. I'm terrified, but I'm watching
yeah,
it.
but don't be, but I'd say I went in terrified, and I continue to be in awe of the terror because I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it. And I now see that when you go to trashy channels, the commercial channels, I'm starting to see now that most of those commercials that seem to have real people in them are AI. There's no
Yeah,
doubt
yeah,
about
the
it.
high
I can see,
fashion kind of look it understands very quickly.
yeah,
Like
I can see that,
commercials, magazines, that kind of stuff.
yeah. And unfortunately, here's what went through my head as I was watching, because I tested it. I went in, there's a free test on it. I went in and tested it. And first thing, it's not as easy as you think. I go in and I give it a prompt. So I go, give me a person in the desert saying this. And the worst image in the world come up, just crap. I mean, absolute garbage came up, right?
Yeah.
So it's not so simple.
Well, it
Let
doesn't
me
have
just,
taste.
it has no taste, yeah.
Yeah, it has no taste.
So yeah, so what I did was I put my name in. Let me just get this back.
Oh no,
Oh
it's
yeah,
got your stuff, doesn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I put my name
There's a
in.
huge lawsuit right now. I don't. I'm very cynical about all of it, but I'm cheering them on because it's messed
Yeah.
up. Yeah, yeah, it's
Well, I
messed
well
up.
I put my name in it, and I said in the style of Patrick Johnson, come out actually pretty good, and that was frightening.
Yeah, it is.
Now I have a friend in England who puts his name in. He loves it because he doesn't have to do all that work because he's retirement age really. He's going fantastic, banging out
He's
six
the one
paintings a
guy.
day.
He's the one guy. It's like finally.
But the thing is that it's his work, really. He puts his name in. He's done so much
Yeah,
work in the past. He puts his name in. It's really, to be honest, it's his. It recreates it in the way he would do it if he was super fast. So it's
yeah,
basically him on steroids. And so it's pointless for him to paint anymore because he'll get a lesser result when he can hang on what he had in the past to bring out this new thing that's stunning him. So he gets to
yeah,
enjoy himself. He gets to goes, wow, look what I did or could have done. That kind of thing. But I did prompt and prompt and prompt and looked into, I mean, I just went down a rabbit hole and learned all about AI for the last week. And by the end of the week, I had photorealistic cinematic people in a desert saying what I wanted them to say. And you couldn't tell the difference. You couldn't say, you would think, well, who's that actor?
yeah, yeah.
And
I
that's
think
what
you're
was
gonna
terrifying.
see like people in basements on their laptops making like Marvel level movies. And
Yeah.
so what that means for like entertainment is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Like it
Well,
took
here's
you a
what
week to figure it out.
yeah. Well, I saw a guy, you could probably find this somewhere. And he said, let's try this new language model because they're coming. Here's what terrified me. Once upon a time, how do we get the AI? Once upon a time, you would say, look, it's not the 1950s anymore. We can build a better car, right? So you would say it's not the 1950s anymore. We can use an electric car. This guy said, okay, so we can give it text to speech. We can give it speech. So get him to say this. And he put a photograph of himself in. And now he's speaking, but it's not him, right? He says, that's pretty impressive, right? It's not 2023 anymore. So he's talking 2 years ago was the Stone Age.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. 2 years ago was the Stone Age. Do you remember when people tried to eat spaghetti and it was going in their eyes and coming out their ears and stuff?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
just this guy eating spaghetti and it was
Yep.
going in.
Yep.
So 2 years and everything's exponential. So the next thing you'd be saying, it's not April anymore, you know? Because it is getting faster and faster and faster. You could say it's not yesterday anymore soon, or it's not 11 a.m. anymore. They're going that fast. It's just astonishing.
Yeah.
But here's the problem.
Just go touch some grass. Go play in the
Yeah, go
mud.
touch some. That's
Get
what
some
I did.
sunlight.
Exactly. I went down and rolled in the grass with my little dogs and fed them treats like that, looking at their faces at the sky. And it was gorgeous. And I went, what am I doing up in that cave? And then I realized I went and got an old-fashioned book. And it's not just being old-fashioned. I think it's important. I went and got an old book. It was Terry and the Pirates. And I sat and I read it on dry paper because I don't like glossy paper. It just reminds me of AI. And I'm going, oh, this is just a relief not to be looking. I think it's because it looks like a screen. I want dry paper because it's not a computer screen. And I was looking at and I was going, this is wonderful. And the birds, right? And then I started drawing. And here's the thing, the drawing wasn't very good. Whereas Rachel's drawing here all the time. Now, if you're prompting all the time, your skills are getting lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser all the time to the point where you're no longer an artist, you're a prompter. Whereas this stuff is getting better and better and better. So now we're becoming this niche. And basically, the best business is niche. There's 8 billion people on the planet. And if you're niche and you can grab 500,000 people, that's a tiny little audience. And that's what I was talking to Marshall about the other day on the phone. We were talking for ages, me and Marshall. Marshall Vandruff will be coming on once we have shaped something. That's why we're here today, to talk about painting and then get Marshall on maybe in a month or so. And we were talking about basically our lives going back and just how wonderful it was and how much is lost now. But the niche thing was Marshall wanted to talk about books with Stan. You know, they did a vote, and the least wanted thing was talking about books. People wanted
I'll
techniques.
talk about books.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I thought, and I wanted to talk to Marshall more about this because I was thinking about the conversation later. And I thought, but we should talk about the books because niche is big.
Yeah.
You don't have to talk to 8 billion people. Niche is big. Everyone's talking to 8 billion people. But when you bring niche in, and that's what I do when I go onto YouTube, I go and look at things that I am interested in. And there's enough people to do that. There's whole book channels. Lookbook I was looking at the other day. We just look at books. So, and it was like 100,000 subscribers. How many do you want? Do
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. It seems like you're very good at navigating this digital stuff in a way that's not like killing you. A lot of people
Or like making you become not genuine anymore.
yeah, yeah. Like digital, I feel like it kind of takes a piece. Like if you let it, you start to let your skills go, and that's one place where I feel a bit conflicted about stuff because I go back and forth between digital and traditional. But
Yeah,
like you said, I want to make sure that I'm still like thinking because the digital does do some of the work for you,
yeah,
and and it's still important to me to keep my traditional skills up. Like that's still like going on in the background while I'm producing. Like the digital stuff, you get like something so quick, like
yeah,
it takes me like an hour or two and I get like something that looks professional. I can just, the file's already done. Like when I make something
yeah,
traditionally, it's like I can sometimes get it done quickly, but then the photographing and all that, and it's just
yeah,
more of a process. And so digital's
yeah,
good for certain things. You can get stuff out there quickly and get it to a very wide audience. Like it
yeah.
expands your audience, but in other
Oh,
ways it becomes like addictive and kind of
yeah,
bad. Like not in a good productive place wherever some people are like pursuing the wrong thing, I guess. I
yeah.
don't know what I'm trying to say. There's some in there.
No, I know exactly what you're trying to say. It's a really good point. The thing is, when Photoshop came out, and I've told this story a million times, but it is such an important pivotal moment. You know, it's right there right there in my forebrain, right? Seeing a bus go by that said, call us on www dot something, right? And I was walking with my agent down Tottenham Court Road in London, and I says, what the hell is that? And he said, that's the internet. I says, how do you ring that? Now, I know in America you can ring numbers or you can ring words. They say, like, call Saul 43, and each one of those letters is a number.
Mm-hmm.
We never did that. That just didn't catch fire where I came from. It was always a number. You just had to remember the number. So we were always good at remembering numbers. 004433. We knew how to do it because we had a rhythm to it. I says, how the hell do you ring that? He says, you don't. You type it in. And I went, that'll never, we'll do that, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Now, the internet came and we were terrified of Photoshop. And people put it up. I remember one painting in particular, it says the writing's on the wall. And there was writing on a wall because that's advertising for you, meaning that you can throw all your pencils and paints away. We don't need them anymore. Totally untrue. So you can say that that's AI now. There's an artist on here that I used to work for and work with, and she was brilliant. And why is her work so good? She's working. I went into your studio, it was all computers. I said, why is her work so good? Because she never, ever succumbed to just 100% digital. So she would paint a little bit, scan it in, digitize on top of it, totally unique, looked at like $1 million. And she was awards galore. So if you have traditional and digital skills, you can't lose. Like, for instance, I'm looking at this one down here, Rachel. Now, I'm probably, in old money, I would have said that's a traditional piece of work, but I'm assuming it's all digital, is it?
Yeah, that's digital. The only traditional things here are the two charcoal drawings.
Yeah. And look how gorgeous they are. So we yearn for that. Like I did yesterday when I went and got that big book of Terry and the Parrots out, is we yearn for that in the end because the gloss is just, when you've eaten too much chocolate, it's that. The gloss is too much. But the fact that you've taken the sense of traditional skills into digital, and most people wouldn't know the difference, and that's what you want. If you can
Yeah.
say
Yeah, it's
that's a
important to
photo,
me to keep their traditional skills, I would say.
yeah,
I've always tried to keep that.
I don't think it's important. I think it's essential. I
Yeah,
think it's a
yeah.
hundred
I think
percent
you
essential.
learn from traditional better too, and it's important to me to continue to learn. And digital is really cool with other stuff. Like there's all kinds of doors it opens to like understand how to use digital tools.
Yeah,
And so I can kind of like comprehend stuff that's coming down the pipe too, like be able to halfway understand how to operate in whatever world develops. But this
yeah,
is
and
this drawing's both. It's a graphite drawing with some digital colors over it to kind of make it look like a painting.
yeah,
So that's again like that could be a really laborious oil painting or something, or I could just spend a day drawing it and then have something done in like a day and a half that looks like this.
yeah.
And yeah, it's like
And that was the thing is, yeah, that was the thing as well. Is when digital came out, I abandoned all the traditional stuff because I believed the hype that the writing was on the wall, and I get lost for 15 years doing too much digital stuff. But it was only for the finishes. I was very horrible because I could draw, and so I could do 4 or 5 thumbnails and just bang them into the machine. So I was using the machine basically to send stuff. No longer did we have to courier stuff to get an idea. Like if you lived in a different county or something like that, you'd have to courier something across the way for people to look at if it was color. You could fax it back then. If it was just a sketch, that was
that's
okay.
so
But
crazy. Yeah,
and no, but you were always running out of fax
yeah,
paper,
yeah. I've
so you
never
were
owned a fax
encumbered.
machine.
Oh, they were hilarious, Rachel.
Yeah.
We've If you had a fax machine, people went, "Wow, the future." There's a scene in Die Hard actually where he goes to buy his plane ticket, and someone says, "I'll just fax that through for you," and he turns to his mate and he goes, "It's the 21st century." How is that dated? That is so dated now. When you see it, it's such a clunky tick 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 tick.
Yeah.
But fax machines are coming back. Newspaper reporters still use them. And the reason for that is it's end-to-end encryption it just cannot be interfered with. Nobody can stop that, get into the other end. Nobody can see it coming from that point and get into that end.
If they want
So
to, they'll
effect,
figure it out.
but they can't do it with a computer.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
basically have to be in that office and grab the fax machine. So fax machines are incredibly good for sensitive information. You can still send. They're not completely dead. But you won't. I wouldn't open a business selling fax machines. You only have 3 or 4 customers. But what I could do with digital is that I could send like 5 thumbnails and talk to a guy on the phone while he's looking at them, which was amazing. Now, a little bit of commerce. I had a friend once who was the very art director I would send them to. And I would go into so many art agencies and they would say, I envy you. And I thought it was just, nice people saying nice things. I envy you. Your job's so great. I envied them. They were on a payroll. They were getting paid very well. They didn't, at 5 o'clock, they get shut off and not have to worry about things on the weekend. I was basically working 7 days a week because I was always thinking the next job, always thinking about, it's almost like I was in the Great Depression, that if I say no, it'll close the door that'll never open again. Or if I don't keep working, it might stop and I'll stop whenever it dries up. And it never did dry up. Not completely anyway. It did at the start. That's why I was so scared of it. But he started his business and I realized he was telling the truth. He didn't want to be in the grind of being told what to do. He's a creative person. He wanted to do what I was doing, create stuff and just walk around the town and taking a job you like or not. Whereas he had to take every job that came in. And his business failed completely. And I says, what happened? Because he was brilliant. He says people would use me for ideas and then they would say, sorry, we're not going to go with that. And then they go to you, and then they would finish it. So they would just basically mine him for ideas like a prompt. And then they would take what he gave and then carry on. I says, well, you're not charging for your concepts. He says, no, I build it all together. So concepts and it was in, and if the job came off, then they'd pay me for everything. But the jobs never came off.
Yeah.
So I
That's
said to him,
unfortunate.
it's unfortunate, but what he should have done is what I did all the time, which was charge for the concepts. And, when you're young and starting off, you go, oh, they'll never hire me if I do that. Here was the rub. The concepts anyone could afford in an agency. So the concepts were only $20. So I said, okay, it's $20 a concept, little pencil sketches I could do, honestly, in a minute. $20. And I says, if it goes over 5, then you'd have to put an end to it and say, look, you've got to choose from those 5 or kill the job and give me a kill fee. So I was very savvy with business because I used to have an agent. So a kill fee, basically, if the job's terminated at any point, you get half a third of the fee for what the job was. That right away said you were a professional person and you were the best. You have to be the best, by the way.
Yeah.
You can't do this unless you're the best, right? So I had a reputation of being the best. So I says $20 a concept. So 20, 40, 60. So there's $100 that they have to give me. And the thing is that I take that fee off the end. I just add it to the end. So I say, so this is the concept. If the job goes ahead, that fee's buried in the entire total. Here's the total, right? If you can't make your mind up in that point, then send me that concept fee. So that meant that any morning I was working on concepts, which were nothing to me at all. I knew that I made $100 in an hour or so and carried on doing concepts for other people and just kept on like that. And if all those jobs collapsed, I was still doing okay. So I was always being paid. Why wouldn't you be? That's what's always astonishing to me. Why would you not be paid for your
Yeah,
work?
this is why we need you, Patrick.
That's right. So I had to be paid, but anyone could afford $20. Anyone could. And the way I made lots of money was to take, and it's still a principle I do today, was I just take little jobs that maybe I'm not too keen on, but I know they'll be done in a day, which would be storyboards, for instance. So I would say it's storyboard Monday, and I would do storyboards. I still like them. It was better than other jobs. It was better than working in the supermarket, which is what I used to do, and much better paid. And I had a friend once that worked in a supermarket too. It seemed a job that artists could do. He worked and he used to push the trolleys around. And I used to think and remember, I think anyone doing an honest day's work is to be admired. But if I see that guy pushing the trolleys around, I could never imagine that he was a brilliant artist. And he was a brilliant artist pushing these trolleys around. He refused to pick the airbrush up. I says, I can teach you how to use this airbrush. And you can do some slick stuff for advertising in the morning, call it airbrush day. He refused. He says, I'm not going to prostitute myself with an airbrush because he was all traditional. So look at that all the way back. He thought the airbrush was prostitution, and then digital, and then AI. It just keeps coming.
Yeah.
It's the horror that keeps coming.
Yeah.
But he would rather he brought I'm so sad he brought in a receipt once. He says, "Look, I can get half price petrol from this receipt. I found it at the bottom of the trolley." So he was taking all the receipts that people left behind to get the discounts on the back.
Oh
He thought
wow.
he was a winner.
Yeah.
It was just too sad. So there's the thing, we have to adapt to change. They say that's the sign of intelligence, not an intelligence test, because not everyone knows how to do math. You can't go to a village in Africa and say, here's an intelligence test. Oh, you failed. You failed on math, English, and grammar. You know, it's adaptation. So we have to adapt. That's what this podcast's about, if I
Mm.
remember rightly.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
we adapt? But I'm not advocating AI. I'm not advocating it at all.
Yeah. Really here to
So I've got
enlighten the masses.
so many disclaimers. I'm here to say if you have traditional skills, you are head and shoulders above the masses. Head and shoulders. No prompt in the world is going to get you a job in advertisement. They say, I want this guy to do that and pick up our product. Maybe, in 2027, but you'll have a million prompts to get to that. And they'll still come back and say, that's not what we want. And they'll try and change it again. And you cannot get exactly what you want for their specifications, but you can with a pencil and a paintbrush and a concept, no problem at all. So
Yeah.
it's still, we are the most horrible source on earth that we can draw.
Yeah.
Nobody
So I'll
can,
keep
nobody
telling
can beat
myself.
us. It's true. It's true.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. Well, the
but
question
we
for
have,
me is just like the big thing is like why do we do this thing if the robot
that's,
can do
that's
it?
the question.
And yeah, yeah, I've probably mentioned it before, but I feel like it's the people who have that who are gonna do okay.
Yeah.
Like, and if you don't know why, I mean, you're comfortable just letting the robot do it, and yeah,
Yeah. Well,
and
Find
if
something fun.
universal
yeah,
if universal income becomes a thing, which I think it will, I can't see any other future for it with AI coming about. You've got to have, if you don't have universal income in the future, it's going to be an apocalypse. There's going to be riots on the street. Nobody's going to have jobs. So you have to have a universal income. And a universal income is peanuts to the trillionaires that are going to run the planet with AI. It's peanuts. So a universal income is going to be the greatest thing for an artist because finally you can go answer that question that Rachel just asked there. Why are we doing this? Imagine the art we're going to see when you no longer have to worry about the commerce behind it.
yeah, I
It's
hope
going to be
so. I hope that's
it's
the
going to be
way it
astonishing.
goes. Yeah, yeah, that's what I want to
Well,
see.
well, they've already tested it. I think they t tested it in Norway somewhere.
Mm.
There's a place up there. I think is it Finland? It's one of those countries they say, can we be Finland? And it's always about the utopia. How can we get to Finland where, you know, there is no notion of poverty. Everything is fine. They pay high taxes because they're not worried about it, because they have a good enough wage to pay high taxes. And then they're not being robbed because everyone's doing okay. And so you're enjoying things without having to build a security wall around yourself. And I think that they tested universal income recently, and it was a huge success. And they tested also a 3-day working week and got more productivity.
Oh yeah, that definitely. Yeah,
Yeah, because you burn
yeah,
yourself out. And basically, you don't have to tell people to work when they love what they do. So if you said to me it's a 3-day week, I'll still be doing 5 or 6 if I feel like it at any point. I'll just do it because we don't do this for the money. We do this, to answer Rachel's question, because we need to. It's in us. We have to. What else can we do? We can't just sit there and not do it. I'm not doing it if I'm not getting paid. You'll still do it. We came in here with a pencil in our hand. I used to draw on the back of wallpaper because my dad used to cut it off and he'd drop it on the ground and I'd scavenge it like the apocalypse for a kid. I'd scavenge it and draw on the back of the wallpaper and he saw me and he kept sending me the wallpaper over and I'd just draw on it. I had free, really high grade paper that I could draw on. Nobody was giving me a wage. I was working.
yeah. Like all kids draw. Like most of them do at
Yeah.
least, and then they just stop at some point. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like that
Well,
expressive stuff just gets like educated out of us through the school
Mm-hmm.
system or something. Like
yeah.
I see a lot of that changing in the future too, is how we educate
Yeah.
people, and I want to be optimistic about that. I see a lot of
Yeah.
like online schools popping up that are good and probably better,
Yeah.
but then there's like the social thing that's needs to be
Yeah.
fixed. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I had a great friend, another friend of mine that's sadly not with us anymore. And just a few months ago, I didn't even know he was sick either, because people don't want to be defined by their sickness,
Mm-mm.
because people just talk about your sickness until you're dead. So that's a horrible way to go. So I sat with him and we used to teach together in university. He's a great thinker. And we used to sit and brainstorm. And the last brainstorm we had was, with AI, there's no point anymore in the teaching model that we have. There's no point in even grading papers in an art class anymore because AI is here. So, what is teaching now? It has to be a new idea. We have to teach differently. So, that's what we were talking about. We're talking about when we come back, if we come back to the university, we're going to have to just accept that AI exists and that the kids are using it because you
Mm-hmm.
can't monitor it. You can't use this. It's just a stupid thought because you can't go into their houses with a drone and watch them. So we were talking about how do we make this happen? How do we teach now? It's a new world order. It's a totally different thing. Okay, now we haven't heard from Melanie. Melanie, have you got? I think you had something to show us. I'll stop sharing the screen here this end, or if I think you should just
Yeah,
share
do
it,
you
don't
have
you?
it?
Yeah, I haven't sent it anywhere. If it's easier, I can send it somewhere.
Is it?
Maybe to your email.
I love the covert look I got there. Maybe
To your email.
what I'm worried about, what's going to pop up on the screen, you
Hmm.
know? So let's have a look.
Yeah, I
Uh,
finished it right before the podcast started,
did you?
or at least
Okay.
the same minute that the podcast started, so I didn't have a chance
Yeah.
to send it over.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, Melanie, why don't you critique it yourself or have Rachel do it?
Oh goodness, I don't want to do
Or
it.
talk between
I
yourselves.
mean, there's not a lot to say about it. I kind of have a collection of everything that I've done since November, or not everything, but there's no way I could put everything on there, but since November 2nd, 2022, when I really started taking it seriously. And my
Okay.
main point is to say that my secret is just to do it. So that's really the drawing secret that I bring to the table.
If
Oh,
you
excellent.
join the Zoom call, you could screen share from your iPad. I didn't
I
think
don't
about
have
that before.
I don't have Zoom on here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We
Well,
didn't work this out before.
yeah, if you want to see everything, it's on my Instagram.
Oh, it's on your Instagram,
Yeah,
of
you
course.
can
We'll do it.
bring that up maybe if that's helpful. Or
Yeah, I mean, it's
We'll
not
do that,
as,
yes.
it's not like impactful as what I spent, time working on, but
Okay.
it'll get the message across, I guess.
All right. Well, we'll do that. Okay. Let's have a look. What was I going to talk about? Yeah. Look at that little fella there.
whoa.
Now, there's no way when he was, what the hell's happening on the right-hand side of the face there? Something that AI is going on. But there's no way that little kid who was drawn in the back of wallpaper was thinking about money or any kind of payback for what he was doing. And you would have said it was self-imposed child labor because I was drawing 6 hours a day. That's a working week. Just sitting there drawing all the time. A savant. Look at my beautiful mum. Isn't she gorgeous? Look at her. Wow, the style back then.
We do have a question from
Yep.
Chuck about your painting, Patrick. He says,
Yep.
I know you paint with the canvas mounted on MDF. I wish I had done that on my recent painting. Did you mount
Yep.
it to a stretcher afterwards, or do you frame that somehow?
That's a great question there, Chuck. I had trouble with this one. So what I had, let me show you something up here. That's great. Okay, so there's traditional. There's no better way to just buy a pre-bought board. It's as simple as that. But it has problems. You see behind that there's struts. And sometimes the struts pick up the paint as when you emboss something, you put paper on top of a grate and you get charcoal in it and it gives you an impression of the grate. So basically, if it's not a completely flat surface, you're going to pick something up of what's behind it. That's the problem with these canvas struts. Sometimes you can hit the actual strut behind it. But apart from that, there's nothing better than a pre-bought canvas like that one. So for convenience, you can't beat that. That's dead easy. The problem with that is it's really hard to burnish the sketch onto it because it's like an ocean in between the struts. So as you burnish down, you're pushing the canvas in. And also you're making a kind of dip in the canvas because remember, it's just canvas. It's just like your jeans, you know? You wear your jeans for a couple of days, they start to sag, right? You have to put them in the wash and all of a sudden you think you've gained 4 pounds because they're tight again. That's canvas. So what you have to do there is I take the biggest books I have that are almost the size, or if I can get them, the size of the struts in between the struts. What I mean by the struts is the wooden uh, little planks in between that hold the canvas together. And I put the books behind that and I burnish onto the book and then move across and burnish onto with the book underneath, a couple of books usually. So obviously, it's much simpler to get an MDF like this over here, which has no struts. It's just an MDF board, and just get loose canvas and staple it on there. That's why I do it. It's so simple because when I send this to the client, I don't send the canvas. It would just get destroyed. It would get absolutely destroyed by uh, Federal Express or any number of hands that are going to touch it are going to smash it or put a hole through it. And so what I do is I roll it into a PVC pipe, and then they stretch it at their end. Simple. It's very simple. But yeah, here's the thing. I want to just go back because this is one of those moments, micro thoughts that you may not have come across. And then all of a sudden you come across it and you go, what the hell just happened? I don't know what to do with this. So if I had a smaller, I think I've got a picture up here somewhere. There. Right. See there? There's not a staple to be seen. Do you see that? So basically I stretched this just like watercolor paper. So all I did was I got canvas and treat your canvas well. Always make sure it's on a roll. If you could grab it and just fold it into squares, those squares will just be impossible to iron out, just like jeans that have been set on. So I unroll the canvas, then I soak it in water, and then I get that parcel tape that you get only from the post office that I can see anyway, or maybe some big depot or something like that. But you won't get it in a normal store. I've never seen it anyway. And then you wet that too. Make sure it's all wet. Such a tricky thing to explain. But do you see the thickness of this tape? Do you see that? There's two sets of it there. There's one and then there's another. I have a bowl of water. Think of a Tupperware tub, just that stuff you get from the Chinese takeaway. I fill that with water and I run this tape through it so it's completely wet all the way through, or a sponge, but the sponge gets sticky. So I do that, and the entire tape now is completely soaked. It'll start to curl up like this. So you've got to pull. It's so tricky. You have to pull it all down. In the meantime, this canvas is sitting on the MDF, waiting for this tape. And I put the tape on all the corners. And then I get a hairdryer and I dry the tape first. So basically this looks buckled at this point. And I dry the tape. And when the tape is completely dry, that stuff holds like Samson. Then you can just watch it. And you can watch that canvas get tighter and tighter and tighter. Because these tapes are holding it while it shrinks again. Because it's got bigger because it's been soaked. And it's just like your jeans in the dryer. You pull them out and they're tight again. And it gets tighter. You can actually hear it. I get great satisfaction of hearing it tick, 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 tick. Imagine it's going to even explode. It gets so tight. And it's so tight at that point. Oh man, it's the most beautiful thing to work on. It is just beautiful. But what I found when it got above that size, it no longer worked. It just kept buckling. And so I have to staple it then. So I actually stretched it first and it didn't work, and then just cut it. So I just got a scalpel and cut it all out again, because it's just, you can do anything you want with canvas, and put it back down again and stretched it and stapled all the corners like that, and then worked on it from that point. So basically in here now, it's all stapled all along the edges there. So at a certain size, it's critical mass, the tape just wasn't doing the business. But no harm at all, because I just cut it out. So there's different methods of doing it. This one looks like It might be tape as well. Could have been stapled, that one. Might be something to do with the fact that this is a long edge here and that's a short edge. I don't know. I'm not sure. But no trouble on that one. But that's the best way to do it. If you can get it to parcel tape it, absolutely a cinch. You just cut it at the end, roll it up, send it. Whereas with the staples, you got to pull all the staples out. It's a lot to do. A lot to do in the prep. Also, just here, things don't have to be expensive. This is just an old mirror right there. It's just an old mirror I saw side of the road or something. And I thought that's perfect palette. There's nothing better than a glass palette. They're just wonderful. You can scrape them clean in a second. And I used that for ages until the paint was so thick. What did it look like in the end? Let's have a look up here, because it's in here somewhere. Let's see, where's that palette? 10-year. If you want to know how to paint, this is on my web store. 10-year anniversary. I've updated it. What makes the update so interesting is that I updated it with a painting that's 10 years later to show the differences. Because in those early ones, I was using turpentine, and in these later ones, the third Gamsol, 1/3 Gamsol, 1/3 walnut oil. I don't have the walnut here, but walnut oil anyway, and 1/3 Galkid light. And I just use that for every single layer because by the next day, the fat over lean method still applies because what's underneath is dried. And so the next layer has got more fat in it just by default. All right, so that's not going to play for me there. Something going on.
Pages don't want to load.
Don't want to load. Well, I can hear the machine. Must be the fastest machine in the world.
It's a lot of content to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to find that palette. Just go get another painting book. But anyway, I'm going to have a look at... Now, Melanie, were you going to talk about your own work? Or was I going to talk about it?
Well,
I can't.
Patrick, did you bring any other paintings that you want to talk about?
Yeah, but I wanted to see your stuff too.
Yeah.
But I don't see anything in the email. Oh, we're going to look at Instagram. Sorry.
Well,
I'm pickled.
Yeah, my Instagram isn't organized enough to go through, I don't think.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't have most of what I had on there. Maybe
Well, I'll
next
tell you
time.
what. Well, what I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about my inspirations and why I think they're so good. And then maybe in the meantime, Melanie, maybe 2 or 3 that, maybe paintings that inspired you or your most recent stuff that you liked, or maybe something that was old and something that's new, and you can show what has progressed and what you learned from it.
Oh, what's
I'm
the story
terrible.
behind that animation there?
Oh yeah, so
What happened there?
a student of mine made this and just sent it to me and said, "Do you want to use this?" And I
Just
thought it was
fan
really
art?
nice of her.
You
It's just
didn't.
Curtis.
Wow. Wow.
So Curtis did this. You'll find Curtis in the chat room. So
Yeah.
basically, I run the Anatomy of Style for people that are watching. I run the Anatomy of Style online course, and what comes with that is a chat room for the Anatomy of Style students. There's another one coming up on the 20th of this month, and this was one of the students. Curtis made this for me. Thanks, Curtis. It's fantastic. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
it.
that's cool.
It's got music and everything, and there's Melanie and Rachel.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Pretty sick.
So it's great stuff. It's really good. Yeah, Instagram's a pain because it doesn't have links and stuff. Like for instance, there's a movie
It was another email.
right here, but you might not know it's a movie till you click on it. So if you go to my Instagram page and click on this, it'll show you a little bit of the Anatomy of Style online course, which Rachel and Melanie have taken. And it was great having Rachel and Melanie in as students. Right off the bat, I knew they were going to be something special, and they are. Right, so let's have a look at what inspired me. Hold on, did I answer Chuck's question?
Yeah,
I
I
think
think you
so.
went pretty in depth on there.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was about
What
how
was
to
the actual...
stretch.
Yeah, was that the question?
It was just how you stretch your canvas.
Oh, how to
I
stretch it,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's multiple ways to do it. But at the end of the day, convenience-wise,
Or even
you just
just
buy the pre-bought and buy a good
put it-
canvas because if you buy, it's just like the cheap paint. If you buy a cheap canvas, they're full of knots.
Oh, you want to join? I'm sorry, we're working out some technical difficulties.
You go ahead. While you're doing that, I'll talk about something. Let's have a look. Now, the different ways to approach a painting. As you get more and more experienced, you might just want to put paint straight on. Like you can see here, I'm putting paint basically straight onto that picture. Oh, there's a little bit of quick wash on there. Oh, yeah, that's interesting, actually. So what I was doing there was a quick color wash in oils. When I started out, I used to do color wash in acrylic because it dried quickly, but it really ruined the brushes. And then later I thought, I don't really need to do that because what I do dries quickly anyway. So I just thin it right down. When you're doing your underpaint, you can just thin it right down with only Gamsol. You don't need any oil at all. And just put a quick wash in. It really helps. And as you get more and more experienced, you can put nothing down at all. But when I was starting out, you're guaranteed a good result if you're meticulous. This is me being meticulous. You're guaranteed a good result. There's no doubt about it. Pencil was tight. The underpainting was tight. You could basically almost call it painting by numbers. I dread to say that because it's not that. There's so many little changes that I make, like for instance, putting a curve on that clavicle right there, which was very straight when it was the pencil, or before the pencil, when it was the reference. So there's a million little things you change. And the great thing about working in oils is it gives you time to think. You're always thinking. You're going, this could be better. And you get a slow look at it. The next day you come in and go, oh, there, look at all these millions of things that I can fix. With digital art, yeah, go on, Rachel.
That's what I was gonna take it to. Like with digital, you don't get that. You're just kind of aimless. You can do a lot without thinking digitally, but traditional forces you to think because the mistakes matter, and digital mistakes doesn't matter. And the mistakes mattering is like a reason to keep doing it. And I think we got Melanie's thing sent over to you on Discord.
Oh, did you?
I think that is going to be the way we do it.
All right. So, now have a quick look here at that face. Do you see that face? This is why it's important to be able to draw. That face, I'm not too happy with that. But the reason that face is so over the top is because I've gone off the reference. I want to make this face more dramatic and made it too dramatic. And so if you can't draw, you can forget about it because you're always just going to finish the reference. You're always just going to paint the reference. That's all you can do because there's nothing else you can do. Whereas if you can draw, then you can draw with paint. And you can see, look, the difference in that face now. Huge difference. So I've dialed the drama down because I don't want people to laugh at it and go, well, she's a bit dramatic. So I've dialed it right down and then added colors. Do you see that? So the more you can work traditionally, the more you can do this. So those colors are not anything like the colors from the reference. Because when you take a photograph, it's basically just like someone's got an overall tan or an overall white. They don't seem to have the color depth to them. So learning color, I mean, you can just say, if I wanted to say simply, like, look at me now, right? Am I just one color? Am I wearing pan stick? Because that's what it looks like. But in real life, there's many thin different colors. There's just... we're translucent. What you could do if you wanted to think about it in a simple term is this is the hot zone. The nose to the cheeks is the hot zone. And then down here's the blue zone. And up here's the greeny blue zone. And then where the skin's really thin, that's the blue zone again. So if you think like that, it's a very simple 4 thoughts in your head about color. And then you can do anything you want. As long as those things are in that realm of hot and cold, you can do anything you want. That's a micro thought. Like I say, any picture you take, you can't see that really. You'd have to look very, very closely or dial up the gamma. You can, like if I take this into Photoshop, there's many little tricks you can...
something to drawing from life rather than drawing from photographs too.
Oh, you betcha.
Yeah, that's another thing to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Learn more from drawing from life.
Yeah, you do. See, even there, it's not giving me any help. It's showing me that there's a bit red around the nostrils there. So the level of quality of picture means a lot too. So if you get a really good high-res picture, you'll start to see those reds and blues in there. But anyway, the simple idea is it's a hot zone across that area, and that'll get you started.
We got a quick question from the YouTube just now. From Vadim. He said, ever thought of making videos with your art progress throughout the years, kind of like a mini documentary about yourself?
That's a vanity project.
Yeah, yeah,
Who would watch that?
yeah. The Patrick Jones documentary. I mean,
I
it's gonna
will.
happen one day,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Is it?
yeah. And I'm gonna be interviewed in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
wait. Right, when's that again? Rachel, I can't wait to see that.
Oh, okay. I'll say nice things about you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can always edit it out.
Yeah.
This is
Steve
my favorite
Houston.
I love that
Steve
painting.
Houston painting of all time. And the funny thing was, Steve told me that this was an experiment. It really doesn't look like it, does it? It looks like he's been doing it for years in this kind of style, and now it's come to this zenith of this is it. The style has been nailed. And my oft want from Steve is more female figures. I think his female figures are absolutely fabulous. And with a female figure, it's already there. The flow is already there. With a male figure, it's quite kind of a tree, isn't it? But you've already got these waves, and it just adds to this wave nature of the brush as well. And that's where I want to head with painting. And I've kind of gone there as well. I think everyone does. Let me see, because I brought this in for the art agents. I mean, look, I just love painting like that. I love it. I do. But as I get older and older, the process of the blend in is still meditative, but I'm seeing the clock tick. I want to do more than a few paintings, and I want to have that joy of the initial start for longer. And the way to do that is to start another painting before it's finished, you know? So I love the beginning stage. I love the end stage too, because you end up with, if you're diligent enough, your little Louvre. I've got a little Louvre here. You can come and see me in
Yeah,
an
that's
exhibition,
awesome.
and let's call this Paris, Patrick's Paris, right here. And it's got all that lovely luster of the old academic painting style to it. It has all that. And it's a wonderful feeling of achievement at the end of it. But where I want to go, and where most artists go, I think anyway, is let's say I'm at this stage here. There's no glazing yet, right? It's just the beginning of it. And don't forget the add bleed too if you're working for a collector, because you can see just up here in that corner, right there. Do you see those little crosshairs? They need to bend that across a specific strut that's 36 by 24 or something, or whatever it is for this one. And they can't suddenly fight with a white line where the painting just ended, because canvas isn't like that. It's not a computer. So you need to give them a little bit extra over that edge so that when they stretch it, there's no big white line suddenly appear on the edge where the frame's going to be. But you can see the difference between the extra stuff you put in beyond this point here. But I love that. I love the earthy quality of that. So you lose something along the way, but you gain something else. You got whoa, we're back in the Louvre again. It has that feel to it.
Yeah, there's something about that. Like not only like the lens you were talking about earlier that simplifies it into something smoother, but
Yeah.
when you're like standing far away, like you go to the art museum, you're staying far away from a painting that like looks really cool, and then you get closer and closer to it, you can see the brushstrokes, and they're so like they're abstract, but they still look cool. Like there's something
Yeah.
satisfying about that too, and like keeping
Yeah.
some of that in there. That way, like when you go all the way up to it, it's not just like dead. Like it's been
You're
killed.
you're absolutely right, Rachel. And there's nothing like you say the word satisfaction. I remember an artist looking at it, he says, I hope that highlight is satisfying as I expect it to be if I zoom in. And he zoomed in, and he says it is because it was a blob of paint. And I went to recently to Poland to see some huge artworks. And so you get to have two paintings. You get to see the one that is intended for mass audience. And then as an artist, you get up close and you get another thrill. You get to see the artist's soul. You get to see all the paint and everything that's in there. So we get to have two gifts there, where most people just walk past and go, wow, look at that big thing over there. We get to get our nose up to it. Like I did at the Frazetta Museum, the alarms kept going off and Ellie kept
Yeah.
coming over and going, she was a bit gruff. She says, again? I says, sorry, no, I can't tell the
That's
difference.
Melanie
Sweet.
job now.
Is
Melanies
it?
that
No,
person at the
Yeah,
art museum.
I
Are
would
you?
yell at you, Patrick, if
Oh
you got
no.
too close.
Oh no. I says, Ellie, I just can't tell the difference between this distance and that distance, you know? She was all right after. When she saw my portfolio, everything changed.
We have
I
a few
showed up.
more oh, sorry, Patrick.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
We
It's
have a
just
few
a
more questions
yeah.
from Vadim. So, what's the biggest lesson you ever learned from a painting mistake?
Oh, that is a brilliant question. That is a brilliant question. I'll tell you that Steve Houston just made the worst mistake, and he said it out in public. He bought a cheap gesso. I think it was that anyway. And he had a giant canvas, 10 feet square or something like that. He says the whole thing fell apart.
Oh
He
my
says it was the most
gosh.
expensive rough he'd ever done, most expensive rough, color rough that he'd ever done. That, me too. But here's the thing. Who was that? Was that Vadim, did you say?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The most expensive, the most expensive mistake I nearly made was I went to the art store to buy gesso, and I always buy Liquitex, and the store didn't have it. And then what they had was a quality gesso. I'm always wary of the word quality,
It doesn't
or
say what kind of quality.
yeah, exactly, or special price for you. Because I've traveled enough to know that a special price for you means you're about to be grifted. I have a very special price for you. Yeah, what, the highest price? So I bought this gesso and I came home and I gessoed the canvas and I put the pencil sketch on it and everything. And I was about to seal it and I thought, "Ah, let me just test this gesso. It feels a little powdery as it comes out." And I folded the canvas because that's how it ends up. It ends up on a roll. I rolled the canvas and all the gesso cracked. Now imagine if I'd have spent a month on that canvas, sent the preview to the collector, varnished it, rolled it on the thing, and the whole thing just cracked apart. Can you imagine how horrifying that would have been? That was the most expensive mistake I nearly made. So I only buy what I know is flexible, which is Liquitex, and I have no affiliation with them. Liquitex gesso, it has to be that. That said, I don't really gesso anymore. I use Liquitex matte medium. So I just seal the pencil sketch 4 times with that and rough it with sandpaper and end up with the most beautiful surface. So I don't use gesso anymore. I think that early experiment scared me off all gesso. Some people call it gesso, I'm not too sure. But the most expensive mistake I ever made on a painting was to use water mixable oils
It's an
with,
oxymoron. Like,
I
how do
know it's an oxymoron.
yeah.
I used I used that. Now, what was the problem? Because it was so long ago. I started the painting with that, and then as I added oil to it, because they said you could add oil to it, and it becomes more like oil, because basically it wasn't blending very well. It was destroying all my brushes. It was so sticky. And the thing was that it was drying slowly, which is mad, because it's water-based. So it was drying slowly, and I thought, you know what, I'll just start putting some oil into it because it says you can, and then it becomes oil paint again. So I started doing that, and I was putting just oil because I was using it as an underpainting. I thought I can use it as an underpainting because it's just like acrylics. You can't put acrylics on top of oil because it's water-based. So I thought I'll do an underpainting with it. And then I started painting on top of it. And I was doing a little bit of scumbling, which is what you scruff the brush across, just to really put dry paint on, and a little bit of what looked like plastic peel come off, like gum. When you get sort of a plastic resin on your finger and you've got, this lovely eye, it's therapeutic. You peel the rubber off. Do you know that? You've ever done that with gum? That's what started happening on the painting. And I thought, oh, there's only a little bit. Okay, so I'll just pull it down as far as it is and I'll just sand it. I thought it just must have been a bit of oil that was on the canvas because the canvas should be oil free to begin with. If you're using any water-based paints. There's another thing. So before you put any acrylic or anything on your canvas, rub it with lighter fluid and never put your hands on it again until there's oil on the painting. I thought it was that. And it kept peeling and it kept peeling. And then there was another one, and I peeled the entire picture off
Mm.
because I knew that was going to come off anyway if I tried to scumble again.
At a certain
And
point, you're
that
just
was
like, it's coming off.
it's coming off. And
Yeah,
so that was
is
three
it?
that was three
That's
three
awesome.
days work. 3 days work, and I did what I did with another horrible skeleton I bought once. It wasn't anatomically correct. Threw it out the window. I just went, "Wah!"
Yeah, I was about to
And it
ask
lay
what
in
was like
the
your next step. It's,
yeah, out the window, and it lay in the garden. It actually landed in the garden on its point like that,
yeah,
just stuck in the garden there for about a week.
yeah.
Just the horror of it, never again.
You're just gnawing
So
on your breakfast, staring at it.
yeah, water mixable oils, be gone, right? Unless you're just doing a rough with them, fine. So I'll just use them for that. But I've never opened them again because I was so angry. But look at how much goes into a painting. Look how much I've changed that arm. So you think you got the pencil right, and then you see that it could be better. And that's the joy of being able to paint. So this is the most joyous part, just laying it in, just putting it all in there. I mean, it's fun afterwards. Do I have a finish on that? Let's have a look somewhere. Not seeing it. But that's the most fun part. It's just basically laying it in. You can also just put an umber ground, which is what it's called. You just basically put umber wash on the entire canvas, and that takes away the fear of the empty canvas, which is what it was known as when I was in advertising, just white. It's impossible to even start. You're so scared of it. But if it's all this color here, you can just mix your colors right on top of it. I'm mixing colors on top. I'm mixing colors on the canvas here. I'm not mixing them on the palette. I've got a series of colors there, but I'm basically mixing them on here. I'm taking it and moving stuff. If that's too yellow over there, I'll take a little bit of that and bring it over to this stuff over here that's not so yellow, and take some of this stuff and put it over there. So I'll lay a lot of paint on and just keep dipping into the canvas itself. There's a million ways to skin a cat. Uh, but if you want to get to this kind of finish, it's layers and layers. You got to do a ton of stuff. That's a huge painting.
How big is
But this
it?
is that one.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what it was, but I just remember looking at it, and you actually can see get an idea of it. I think it was about 6 feet in its frame.
Oh my
You're
goodness.
in America, you understand what I'm talking about there.
Yeah,
I can't remember meters.
yeah. Well, I don't
So
know.
it's
I don't
it's
know him
Yeah.
anyway.
yeah. Well,
Um,
3 meters is six and something feet. It's nearly 7 feet. But let's have a look at it. I think we were looking a second ago, weren't we? I was in
yeah,
a
I think it
Lux
was more up.
more
Vadem also asked what was your largest charcoal drawing.
largest charcoal. I don't really do big charcoal drawings because you buy the paper. I don't like the rolls of paper because you just keep on rolling. So I just buy the biggest charcoal there is. I can't remember what the size is. It's that
16 by
size.
24.
It's bigger than that. No, it's bigger again. It's twice that.
Okay.
Yeah, or something like it. You can see that paint in there. Look, do you see how big it is?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
that it's that big. So it's
Melanie's
bigger
got
than
some
this.
big charcoal drawings.
Yeah,
Who has Melanie?
I just took the sheets that you get from the art store and I taped them together four taped together.
Yeah.
I don't know how big that would be.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It was like a big spot on the wall.
It was
I
fun.
love
It was
that.
fun working that large.
Yeah.
I bet it
Yeah.
was. I love the fact that you just went, the hell with it, I'm doing this today. And and that's what's great about it, because if you're only working digitally, and I'm not deriding digital, by the way, you're fixed to the screen. So you're always fixed to it. And one of the things I had to keep saying to my students when I taught at the university was stop zooming in. So I want them to do concept roughs for a movie, for instance, and they'd fill the whole screen with one concept rough, and they'd work on it all day. I said, I charge $20 for them. Are you going to live on $20 a day? Do you know what I mean? So it should have been done in 3 minutes. So I made sure they never zoomed in, so they'd have to have a screen with 16 squares on it, and they don't zoom in. They just draw one square and then the next square and then the next one. And you know what? They were so liberated. They loved it. They were really inspired. They had so many ideas. And I think they were frightened they'd run out of ideas, so they wanted one big idea. That's the worst way to think. Because by the time they had done five, they had another five, because the first five inspired another five. By the time they had 10, they couldn't stop. They just kept going. And that's what's wonderful about a small idea. You can throw the ones that don't work away in a second. And the
Yeah.
ones that didn't work, maybe the reason they didn't work is because you tell yourself it should have been this, and now you've got another idea. So the stuff you throw out is invaluable because it leads you to the stuff you keep. You have to do loads of stuff.
Yeah, the brainstorming, it's a muscle. You Gotta work that
Yeah,
out, and you get better and better ideas that way.
that's right. Look at Frank. Look at that.
Yeah, yeah. He was always thinking.
He was always thinking. And you
Yeah.
know what? You know what always surprises me when I look at it? Everything seems so spontaneous in a Frank Frazetta picture. But if you look at that rough and then you look at the painting, he's pretty much just lanterned that up. He's basically just taken that and got his magic lantern and projected it up and drew it again because there's practically no difference in the scale of that at all. So I think that's what he used to do. He would put it all into the rough. And I talked about this with a person in the studio a long time ago, and they were showing me, really beautiful, spontaneous work. And I said, boy, imagine having the confidence for that. And she knew the artist. She said, he draws that 60 times. He draws that 60 times. Oh, I should have put that private up there. You just go up there and put do not disturb on.
Mhm.
Do not disturb. They're the boss of us. She said he does so many ideas to get to that finish that when he does the finish, he does it really fast because he's already done it 60 times. So the stuff that looks the most spontaneous is being thought about so much that by the time it's ready to execute, there's no hesitation because they're not working it out as they go. It's been worked out. So I think that's what Frank did.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
I
I
like
think he was
that.
fast because yeah, I think he was fast because he procrastinated over all of the drawings.
Yeah.
So the thing is, he worked for months on a picture, even if he finished it in a day or three. It's hard to imagine he finished anything in a day. I mean, really, unless it was a single figure. But on
Yeah.
that one, quite possibly would have been exhausted. It would have been a
Yeah.
16-hour day.
He seems
I mean,
like
I've done,
he'd be crazy enough to do something like that, though.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
well,
he had that look in
yeah,
his
well,
eye.
yeah. Well, what I've heard is that he was exhausted and couldn't paint for another few days.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that does tell me that he worked 16
It's
hours or
not
something.
sustainable, but you can do
Mm-hmm.
it sporadically like that.
Yeah. And I can see the method behind it. It's not madness. Look at how it's all fluid. It's all in there. I mean, that's what comes from doing something in one hit. You get all of that. And that's why I'm gravitating toward that idea. Because I have it here in a different method, which it should be. It shouldn't look like his. Where is it? You see, that's very methodical, right? But the challenge I'd give myself, see, what happened was I was doing roughs for paintings and then liked the rough better. I went, you know what? I love that. I would love to do what Melanie did and paint that at 10 feet with giant brushes. What what a spectacle that would be. But it's only a little thing like that because it's an idea for another painting. But I love that. So that's what I gravitate toward because I don't have to project anything. I don't have to draw tightly. I just basically paint right on the canvas as if it's life draw. So I just get a number thin and I start drawing as if it's a charcoal drawing and then start painting as if it's a life class. And that's it. It's done. So I give myself, I think, was it 6 hour finish on this? And I loved it because it reminded me of the life drawing classes. And I was starting to see now those paint strokes that you see in the old paper book artist stuff where they were really always against the deadline and just the viscosity of it all. So what I did is I gave myself 6 hours to finish it and then another hour the next day to put some glazes on. I think it was something like that. But I told myself you can't have more than 8 hours on this painting.
Yeah, that's
So
another
I
thing is
tell,
that time limits, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is a good painting secret.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
if you've got more time, you've got more time to make mistakes and you've got more time to make it worse.
Yeah.
I loved it at that stage. Now, once again, if that was 10 feet tall, that took me an hour max, probably 40 minutes, something like that. If I could just learn to stop, what a statement that would make in a fine art gallery. Because that's what they're looking for. More and more with AI, they're looking for the artist's hand, the artist's soul.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're looking for. But I do like taking it to that stage there. So that's two of those experiments. Now, if you're going to experiment, you can't do it on a commission. Because if someone says, I love this painting, right? And you give them that painting, they're not going to be happy. So what I need to do is get a bunch of them together. The thing is, they sell quite fast. I've sold all of them. They're all sold. because I sell them at a lesser price. So I'll sell them when you see them next to the big paintings, they look like a hell of a fire sale. They look like a bargain basement almost, but not really. It's still big money. So collectors will come along and go, wow, I'll have that. I've got a Patrick Jones that, I can't afford that one, but maybe in the future, I'll start the collection here. And they have that. And I went to a gallery here in Brisbane, and I just thought I never go to galleries where they say, bring a painting along. And I thought, because I don't like competition, I really don't. I think I dislike it. I thought I'll just do it because the community's there, because my students were putting stuff in. So I thought I'll go down there and I'll put a painting in. Anyway, it didn't win. And that's the thing. When it doesn't win, boy, that's an ego blow for a professional artist. I remember Helen Reddy back in the 70s was a singer, and she was already a professional singer, but her career wasn't going very far. And there was a talent contest, and she entered it. And that was a terrible, horrific thing to have to do, but she won the competition, and it kickstarted her career into the stratosphere because she had a giant hit from that competition. But it was awful for her to have to do that. But I went in there with the ideas, I'm just going to support my students and hang on. Anyway, so it didn't win first prize, it didn't win second prize, and it didn't win third prize. And I looked at the first, second, and third prize, and I'm not going to deride anything, right? But I went, just in my own self inside, I go, can they not see what's in this painting? Can they not see here that this is the future of those painters? This is the future right now. Couldn't see it. And you often hear that where people say they're not ready for it yet. And a little bit of me was bruised, and I thought, you should have known better not to come into competition, right? And so people come over and congratulated me. I says, I didn't win it. He says, no, but you're the only person that sold the painting. You're the only one that sold the painting in this room. Because you could buy the paintings, and nobody bought a single thing. They bought that, right? So when it comes to the collector, they're a different species. They're born in bark. They know the future. They've been collecting, they're hard and tough, and they know what's viable here, and they bought that. So everyone I put up, they sold it. But I've got to do more of them to make that transition and go, this is all I do now. Because that's what people want right there. There's Alana. Shout out to Alana for just an amazing model that posed for both these figures. Couldn't do it without her. Good model, so important. And so I only work with the best. If I can't get the best model, I'm not doing the job. It's as simple as that. I always ask for them, every time. If you do that and think like that, you could go and jet set around the world like that. All right? You can be poor.
That's a
you can be homeless. And it's a big lamp, isn't it?
God.
That's the kind of lamp. If a fight breaks out, that's going to be one of the major fight scenes, that lamp. That lamp's going to be swung. People are going to get hit in the face with it. All of that's going to happen. You're going to swing out onto the... You're going to use that lamp. Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
and when you're
traveling here, I could
go ahead.
throw in. Someone asking, would you advise someone nowadays to work for galleries? The 50% cut seems pretty scary. I've heard a lot of stuff about it. Just depends on the specific gallery. It seems like some are okay, some are terrible, and some are good. From what I've gathered.
Here's the thing. Look, you see all things online. You go, galleries are dead, but that's just, everything is definitely just fear bait. You'll see more fear than you'll see positivity. I've had good experiences with galleries, but I haven't, to be honest, I don't do galleries. I know it looked like I was in a gallery there when I was having my paintings, but that's a convention. So I go to the convention, and for that particular convention, the artist kept all the money. The sales were based on the traffic coming through. So basically, Pat Wiltshire put up a really great thing, the AluxCon thing, and invited the best artists in the world. Very smart. That's a good faith thing again. So he invited the best artists in the world, and of course, people came from all over the US to go to that gallery. The first one was $300 a ticket. So it condensed it down to serious collectors, because they're already spending the $300. So that was the first one. And then after that, there was showcase and table costs for people coming up. And there was also the price of admission. And that's how they made their money because they got, I don't know, in the 100,000 people walking through. So they had that. So the big hitters that came along got to sell their paintings, and the gallery did great business, and everybody was happy. Now take that to New York, and you can get charged 90%. They take You get 10%. They get 90% of your painting. Now who the hell's going to take that offer up? I did because I wanted to exhibit in New York, and also the price they're going to put on that painting will make it such an expensive painting that now you're in the expensive painting world. And if anyone buys that, you're automatically, that's the price of your paintings. So let's say we're shooting for the stars. Shoot for the stars and you might hit the moon, right? Let's say they take 10%, but they have given you $500,000 that you could never, ever get in your life, right? That's just me pretending, right? Now you're a $500,000 artist from nowhere. And anyone looking at that will look at you know, the provenance of that and go, it's been proven. There it is. That's what he sold his last painting for. Now you got Leonardo DiCaprio buying your paintings, things like that. That's what you have. That's a New York gallery. Galleries now are taking about 50%. You might go, a bunch of crooks. It's so expensive to run a gallery. Every day that clock's ticking. They've got someone hired to take care of the room as people walk around. All of that's there, 50%. That's what you get. If you sell paintings, did you sell them when you didn't have the gallery? No. So now you're selling paintings. So you've got to stop thinking about, oh, someone else is taking this. They're working for it. Then there's the other one. You pay for the gallery. You keep all the profits. That is, I would say, not recommended unless you're already a name. If you try and do that and you're not a name, you may as well just what do they do in the gangster movies?
Yeah.
Throw the money out the window like that?
Yeah,
You may
yeah,
as well
yeah.
do that. And if you try that in New York, forget about owning a home. You've just burnt all the money that could have been
Yeah.
your home.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes it's just
galleries,
a stupid risk to take.
if you've got a trust fund, you can do anything you want.
Oh
You can
yeah.
take a risk. We are not trust fund. We don't have trust funds. All right?
One gallery that's kind of interesting. I just took Scott Fisher's Smart School class for the few months. Last month was my last month,
Yep.
and he just did these. He's part of this gallery that's like specifically about like heavy metal and like rock and roll and stuff. And he is like a
Yep.
metalhead. He plays guitar and he's like super into that. And so it's like where a lot of people who are like putting stuff in this gallery, it'll be like the musician from like a well-known band who can like the drummer knows how to paint, and so there's like that
Yeah.
painting,
Is that right?
and there's like a lot of stuff like that, and then there's Scott Fisher stuff, and they his gallery paid for him to go on these like cruise ships this year. So he's
All
like,
right.
yeah, these it was a rock and roll, there was two of them cruise ships that he got to stay on and meet all of his like biggest idols, and also outsold all the other artists there. So if you
Yeah.
ask him what his opinion on galleries are, it'll also be very different.
Of
Because he
course.
had an awesome experience and made a lot of money, and is also very niche. So it gets back to that.
Of
Um,
course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He can be happier about it. He's
Yeah. Well, look, I had a wonderful experience with a New York gallery. So you can be part of a show. Look, I'm part of a show here. Do you see that? So there's my painting, but if you look in the background, there's loads of other paintings. Do you see that? So that's a gateway into a gallery. But if you're going to do a solo show and you're just starting out, I would advise not. But a group show, get in there is a good way to feel around. So this is a group show here. Now, the thing with my painting, I'm a professional artist. The thing with my painting is, I went to the show. Remember, be very cautious about shows when you're talking about someone's art because the artist is right next to you. They're usually next to their painting, they're hovering close by. And someone came right up to my painting and looked at it and went, "Come and see this." And I thought, "Oh, that's nice." I said, "Look at the price on that." Right? So it was the most expensive by light years, right?
yeah.
Basically, I'm pricing not to sell. If somebody wants to buy it, it is sold now. But if someone wanted to buy it, then I don't want the pain of selling that painting at My
What's the
favorite painting.
most you've sold a painting for, if that's okay to ask?
Oh, Rachel. Oh,
Like a
Rachel.
single painting.
I don't want to say. I can't
I
say
want
it.
to know.
I can't say it.
You
It's,
can't.
in,
Okay.
I can't say it. It's got a few zeros on it.
Okay.
But the thing was that
Is it
did
three
sell
hundred
eventually.
dollars?
That did sell. Eventually, that was on my wall for ages. In fact, when I hung it in that gallery there, and I had reframed it again because that had been all over the world, and I put that lovely big Victorian frame on it. The guy that reframed it said this is very little life left in the stretching because it was starting to really deteriorate on the sides because of how many times the staples had gone in and out. He
Mm.
says it's very close to, you can't stretch this another time. So it's been sold now and it lives in Singapore and it's going to open a big gallery in Singapore. I'll stay tuned for that. It's going to be one of the biggest fantasy galleries in the entire world. It's going to be an experience to stop in Singapore and go to it.
Heck
It's just
yeah.
astonishing. Stay tuned. So this is in it. And that was on my wall for ages. I didn't want to sell this painting. And the guy that bought it uh, made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And so it's gone. So that's gone now. That's the model for it right there. And you can see that you need always the best model you can. She went down to Sydney and I didn't see her again for a long time. She came back up for this show. So good models, so important. And you can see how big that one's also in that Singapore. The same collector bought this as well. You see how big that painting is. Absolutely huge.
Yeah,
And you can see the
something about
joy.
like getting really good at painting that exposes you to levels of wealth that I don't think a lot of
That's
people can
true.
comprehend.
That's true as well. That's true as well. But here's the thing, like I was talking to Steve Houston, he hit me with a real sledgehammer. He says, painting's not a business, you know? And it really hit me to the core because really, yes, there are zeros on the end of those paintings, right? You might not sell one and six sits on your wall for ages. So there goes 2, 3 months of your life that you didn't get paid for, and there's your mortgage getting paid in the meantime, and all your other bills, and you're constantly trying to claw back out of no money to pay for something to do another painting. And so that's what he meant by that. Painting's no business unless someone's already bought the painting ahead of time, which is nearly impossible if you're just starting out. But what I do, which is what I love to do anyway, is what I think I'm going to do in the future anyway. It's just paint. And does anyone want to buy this? Because I now can do that, but it's still you're losing money. It's no painting isn't a business unless someone is paying you in advance. Now, lovely Ryan had bought this in advance. I just bought it, before the pencil sketch was even done. He bought that with it's a 36 by 24. That's it. That's all he needed to know. It's a 36 by 24 canvas. And he put a payment on. And so we started to work on that painting. So it takes you a lifetime to get to that point. And strangely enough, I'm at that point now. I'm ready to give it up because in the time it took me to do that painting, I could have designed a whole course and made a lot more money from the course and just let that be a passive income. So when you do a painting, the passive is gone. You're getting an income for a thing that you're going to give to someone, and now you've made a new thing. And that's the last of those dollars. Those dollars stop now. So there's the thing with painting. So it's a tough old gig, but why do we do it? We love it. What a privilege. And I said at the end of that video, thanks for the privilege, because I really mean it. Thanks for the privilege to let me do what I want to do, which is to paint. Just thank you so much, Ryan, for the privilege of letting me do that. But it's no longer, when you add everything up, how many things I have to support and do and all that stuff. I've got gray hair now. I have to look after people and stuff, so I've got these things that I have to do. So it's no longer just me. You think at this, when you get to here, you go, I'll go on holiday. I'll go to the Bahamas and, I'll just look after myself. But it's not like that anymore. There's certain things I have to keep doing all the time. I'm no longer this guy. And that's what I was saying, Rachel and Melanie. This was me the first time in New York going to a LuxCon. And so I would have probably been about 10 years older than you guys there, would I have been? Less than? So pretty close to your age group right there at that point. And if you said to me, Patrick, would you give up all the comfort you have now to go back on those docks in New York, I'd say yes. Take it all. Let the house vanish, let the car disappear, let everything go, zero in the bank, and put me on that pier again. I'd say yes. I'd say thank you very much for that. That's wonderful. So remember, you've got that. That's your superpower. Your superpower is all the years ahead and all the wonders that are in those years ahead that we don't know yet. And the skills that you have, most people don't have. That's why you have to learn to draw. If you can draw, it's the secret to everything. It's the secret to longevity. No matter what AI brings, you can draw and you can get things on paper, and people want those skills. And it'll just make painting more and more unique and more expensive if that's what you're looking at. And you'll become much richer for it in the fact that you're doing what you still love, and you're actually in a class that's getting smaller and more valuable, and people want it. When those billionaires and those millionaires, and there's much more of them today than ever there was, when they've got all that money, they don't know what to do with it. And when you've got everything you need, all the utilitarian stuff, even if you've got your yacht. I saw Conor McGregor on his yacht, bored out of his mind, walking down the dock, not knowing what the hell to do with himself. Didn't it, just clowning around, right? Just totally money to the wrong person, right? Most people love art. Unfortunately, he's not one of them. But that's where they go. They go, art. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy some art and love it and treasure it. And this is a wonderful thing that I have now. It's better than everything. It's better than the yacht. It's better than the car. It's this wonderful thing that I own. And I can show it to my friends, and I can show it to anyone. And no one will say, oh, you're so garish with your yacht. They'll go, that's a lovely painting. Because painting is quality. It's wonder. It's an artist's hand. It's a beautiful thing. Boy, did I talk today. Good Lord.
It's great. Thank you.
You guys talk some.
Well,
we're at about 2 hours now.
Oh, are we? But you guys haven't got to talk about your work.
I mean, I'll go wherever you want to go. Melanie sent her thing on Discord, so if you're able to open Discord,
oh, has she?
On your computer.
I can't get to this. I can't get to it from this computer.
It's okay. There's not any painting secrets in there, so.
Isn't there?
There's no.
Well,
no painting secrets.
Well, maybe we'll leave it another time. Well, let's have a look at a painting together, and we'll call the end of the show with this. If there's any other questions there, because I meant to really look at paintings that weren't mine and say why. And another thing, it's not so much that I found it out the other day, because I've always heard of it, but I never bothered with it, and that's Google search. So I have all these, because it's the internet and we're getting so much stuff so fast. I know a Frazetta and a Boris and a Delacroix and everything, but if I get a painting like this and I love it and I can't see the signature on it, I want to know who did that. And so the other day I just did the same thing with this one. I had this artist, Marsilio Raya. Never knew his name and never would if it wasn't for Google Images. So I'm going to throw this one in and see who did this. Scottish paintings. Oh, it's in Scotland.
Maurice William Green. Oh.
Oh, sorry, did it say?
Yeah. Whoa, that's a crazy name.
That is a crazy name. So I think he's Welsh. Griffenhagen. Or maybe not. It may not be Welsh, actually. It's just that I thought Welsh because it's in Scotland. So it's on the same landmass.
You gotta accept those cookies.
I don't want to accept them, Rachel.
Just deny him. You can deny
You can deny the cookies.
Yeah,
Can I still look?
Oh, wow.
Okay, then. Oh, I want to know so much about him. I'll have to read it later. Can anyone see where he's from? Just as a quick... I used to learn how to speed read, and basically you read straight down the center like this. You go cruel, long, and survive, dynamic. This was before AI, how you could read a manuscript in a day, and I used to do it. Illustrations, career, little art practice, artist, David Ford. You'd have to stop every once in a while, including, like that. Famous work in Idle, White Peacock. It doesn't say where he's from. That's speed reading. I used to have to do that for manuscripts. You'd get the overall idea. Okay, so I know who that is now.
He's British.
Wonderful.
Yes,
is he? Did you see it? But he has to be that name.
Yeah,
that's not a British name. Can Google tell us what that name is? Where that's originating from?
Yeah, Hagen. I'm not gonna go down that rate. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
yeah,
European name, I
yeah. I feel it
guess.
must be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Born in
There's
London.
yeah. There's the Struts. So I was born in London, right? But from immigrant parents, I'm guessing. But here's the thing. Art, it goes up and down. Look, there's 16,000 for that painting, right? That's a bargain. That's $16,000 for a painting that's 100 years old or more, right? Yep, it's over 100 years old, and it's sold for £16,000. That is really a low price. That's an
Yeah.
incredibly low price. But that happened with Alma Tadema down here. And to be honest, I am no longer a great fan of Alma Tadema. And this happens. And it's the reason they always experiment. So I'll bring Alma Tadema up. And he's beloved by many. Do you guys know him?
Maybe once I see him.
There.
Oh, this one. Yeah, I know him.
Right. Now, when I went to see this, I think it might be in the Tate Gallery. I've definitely seen it in real life. I was filled with wonder. I went, that is the pinnacle of painting. It's the absolute height of it, right? And then someone described him as the worst painter in London in his lifetime. Imagine how painful
Jesus,
that must have
that's
been.
harsh.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I looked at it and I went, how can anyone say that when this is incredible? And then I looked and got better and better as an artist and I kept looking at it. And I come back to it today and I go, this guy's one of the worst painters in London
Oh
for
no.
that time. No, and I'll tell you why. It's not because it's not astonishing. It's incredible what he's done, especially this marble. That's what he was famous for. It's not that. It's the fact that I often think of the Beatles. As a group, they were sensational. Individually, not so hot. If you'd have had each individual Beatle make an album, and I was around at that time and never heard of the Beatles, I'd go, yeah, it's okay. Hey, that's good. I like that little one. Paul McCartney, that's a nice little song that. I like that. But I would never go, genius, amazing. I have to buy everything they've ever done. Even John Lennon, even his albums, I go, yeah, that's a bit weak, isn't it? Together they were magnificent. That's what I think of his work now. As a Fista, it's magnificent. But if I go up close, what the hell? What kind of tangent?
It looks
What
like
is
a
that?
collage almost.
I don't know what that is. All right, that's that up there. Yeah, isn't it? So a
Yeah.
million things to look at now is look at that flat face. Do we really need it? Isn't it too many? What the hell is going on? Is that person even involved in this scene? What a hell? Who would put hair in someone's mouth like that? What the hell is going on there? Was there a mistake? Why did you put do you know, on and on? What's the depth between here and there? Zero. No depth at all. You know? What's this about? So on and on and on. Is this a 50-year-old tiny girl? A million things. Peekaboo. A
Yeah, the way that elbow's
squillion.
kind of popping out like that is
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Was would you really put that face in there when we can just see a bit of an eye and an ear? Is there any point to it? You know,
Yeah.
let's just give it some air to breathe.
Guess
Yeah.
I could just
Do we get
slap
a
stickers on there.
yeah? Do we get a magnificent moment? Yeah.
Yeah,
Lovely.
I like the person with the piccolo.
Yeah. If we just had her on,
Yeah.
a stark background, I think that's a nice painting. Overall, you know, it's the Beatles. You know, when you look at it all in one hit, it looks great. When you look at it in individual parts, it's terrible. And then you get a little moment there and you go, "Oh, what a beautiful little face right there. That's just lovely right there." Peekaboo.
The
What were
eyeball
you
coming
thinking?
out.
What were you thinking? Why didn't you just leave it at that?
He just
Do you
couldn't
know?
stop.
So as you get older, you see more and more that's wrong with it, and then you can't help but just look at it and go, "No." And then you see William Waterhouse and you go, "Oh, wow, now we're talking." Look at the flow. Look at the space between the figures. Look at how they're all engaged in the scene. Look at it all. It's just gorgeous,
Going back to those rhythms.
The rhythms.
Yeah, the
Look
other
at
one, the rhythm is just like screaming at me. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like da da
yeah,
da 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 da, like it's equal
yeah,
all the way across.
that's
And
right.
then
And now look,
yeah,
and also look at what should be filled with depth. Look how flat that is
Mm-hmm.
in small preview, and look at the depth of this with that dark and then this light. This is all pretty mid-light, isn't it? It's almost like what you would say is a photograph today. Just take a photograph and it flattens everything out
Mm.
with no understanding at all of composition. By contrast, look at Lord Lytton. Just unbelievable. Look at this dark and look at the lack of detail in that hair. The other one has detail top to bottom.
I
That's why
really
it's got
like
no
those colors.
the colors. Look at how all the whites have a family value when nothing goes really dark. See that? But in here, everything is as dark as you can get and as light as you can get on every single figure all the way through. You can hardly see any distance at all up here. So it sounds like I'm tearing that. I mean, if he was alive, I wouldn't be saying
I mean,
this,
it's a good
but
example of something.
good example.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why this is still revered, the detail where it's required. I can tear this apart as well. I would never just take that whole thing out. Just make that a blue sky. We don't need to see who shot the arrow. I'd imagine, I'd imagine the collector told him to put that in. So that's the kind of thing I put my hand over and try and hide. Can't make it go away. Up there.
Put another
Can I-
dragon back there.
Yeah, or just a blue sky.
Yeah, just a blue
Another
sky.
thing, well, I know where this is. This is Donegal in Ireland. I went there to this Mermaid Cove, and I can see why he was so infatuated by it. I walked along here. He's made more height to it, but I walked along here. There's a big blowhole over on this side where the water comes up every seventh wave or something. The water just comes up through this blowhole. I don't know how many people have died there. There's no rails around it or anything. Just what the hell just happened? I don't know. I think we just lost one. How many children we got? It was like that big blowhole right there in the wonderful Donegal. It's where my parents live. And look at that, Zorn.
I like
Just,
Zorn too.
I nearly cry when I see this. The humanity in that picture. Look at her little face. The
There's some
humanity.
Zorns at the Virginia Museum, right?
Is
They
there?
might have some in the collection, but I don't. They have a lot of sergeants.
Yeah, we have a lot of sergeants here.
Good Lord, you're so lucky.
Yeah.
And you don't have to go
There's
with
one I look at all the time. It's so cool.
Yeah, and here's an artist we should get on, I think. I'm pretty sure this is Maud Brady.
I'm not
It's
familiar.
Colleen Brady, sorry. No, oh no, Maud Brady's the sculptor. This is Colleen Barry. Right? There's something cognitive going on there with those two names sounding similar. This is Colleen Barry, and she's based in Brooklyn, I think. And boy, she could have been born 200 years ago. Look at the quality of that. And look, this was the painting. I hope that highlight is as satisfying up close. It is. Do you see it? Look at the confidence in that.
Yeah.
Look at this unfinished stuff as well. Boy, she's fantastic. Colleen Barry. Have to get her on.
Yeah.
And Colleen Barry, you say where art can take you. You saw me go from homelessness to a James Bond apartment in Vancouver. And I saw Colleen Barry the other day standing with Adam Driver at a gallery beside her painting. So I assume she sold it to him. There's an amazing sergeant right there. That's Lady Macbeth. If you ever go to the Tate Gallery, that's straight across. If you're on a super duper lucky with the inspiration for that painting behind there, Fall of Icarus. Probably my second favorite Victorian piece of art right there, Fall of Icarus. And on a lucky day, turn around, John Singer Sargent, Lady Macbeth, Tate Gallery. You go to London, please don't be the tourist that goes, oh, the Tate Gallery, I thought it was right in the centre of London. Do I have to get on a bus and go there? Yeah, get on the bus and go there. It's just a bus. Get a ticket. Go to the Tate Gallery. Magnificent. And just that little bit of effort means that you're going to a gallery that's not so packed. I went to the National Gallery when I was last in London. Honestly, it was barely worth going to. How London's changed. I used to live in a pub across from the National Gallery, and I used to come down from the pub after a shift, walk across the street, and walk through an empty series of rooms and see all of these paintings. Not these ones, but so many. And I went there the other day, and they just dropped tourist bus after tourist bus off. And honestly, I stood in the street for an hour getting into that gallery. And finally, what I did is I got out of the queue and snuck around the back and walked past the guard. Will you come out? I went round there. I shouldn't have said that. Now that's going to be packed. People sneaking in around the back. And went the opposite way. So that's my tip as well. If you go to an art gallery, kind of use blinkers and go straight through to the last room and then start walking back. And you'll have all empty rooms. And you'll just see a herd coming towards you all the time and going past you. So that's what I always do. And it's about as close as you're going to get to a private view. Okay. Could leave it at there. If you're in New York, just go to the illustrators. What is it called? The Association of Illustrators. I think it's on 75th Street or something like that, east. And just go straight up the stairs. Don't wait for permission. Go straight up. You're an illustrator. Go all the way up to the bar and just see yourself in Norman Rockwell. And gigantic. Norman Rockwell's early period was just magnificent.
I don't think I've ever seen his
Magnificent.
stuff before in
Well,
person.
there's your chance.
Oh,
Yeah,
Well, you can. You can go to the Norman Rockwell Museum up
yeah.
in,
they own it, the VMFA.
Oh, they have one up there.
Hmm.
Oh man,
yeah.
didn't know about it.
Well, if you get a road trip, I always go, well, not always, but a lot of the times I go to the Norman Rockwell Museum from New York and just drive up there. I'm trying to remember where it is. I think it's about an hour away from New York
Mm.
in a car. And it's one of the nicest museums. It's really wonderful. And I went there for his entire exhibition, all Norman Rockwells they put on one time. But usually it's a mix, you get all kinds of artists in there. All right, we can wrap it up there if there's anything else you want to talk about.
Let's
No,
see.
I'm
Because I
trying
could
to
talk
think
about
of.
this all day.
Yeah, no more questions.
You all good? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Early Norman Rockwell. Look at that. Oh, look at that foot alone. No, we talk about the autograph, you trace your drawings. He always did, but he did it lightly, and that's what I advise. If you're going to do, it's a tricky one. When I started off in advertising, everything was traced, and you would trace really tightly because you were not confident, and what was revered was photorealism. So you were really tight. It was horrible. And then later it feeds into your work. And every artist, no matter what they're telling you, if they're working academically, they're tracing their work up to a bigger scope because nobody's drawing through wires anymore unless they're in the academy in Florence or something. They basically, for expediency, they transfer it onto a canvas with a magic lantern or print dot or something like that. But what I think with Norman Rockwell in his early days is that he would only lightly trace from photo reference and then he would draw. And that's what I do. I'll lightly trace as if I'm drawing in live draw. I'll just go, there's a stroke, there's a stroke, there's a stroke. Because if you just trace from a photograph, it's going to look like, with all the distortion and everything, it's going to look like the photograph. It'll be dead as a doornail. Do it lightly and then draw. And I think what Norman Rockwell's problem was ego, is they ended up, the other fellows are doing photorealism, and he was frightened of being left behind, and he would trace meticulously from the 1950s onwards. And that's when he got his biggest fanship because the ordinary people don't understand brushstrokes. They want to see, they think that photorealism is the, it's where we should all be going. Isn't that the idea that you're trying to get exact life? Isn't that what an artist is supposed to do? Missing the point entirely. And so that's what he did. He kowtowed to the audience and ended up with the dullest, for me anyway, the dullest paintings. Even though it had the brilliance of Rockwell in there, it was still compared to this. Oh, that's so beautiful. And look at the extremes of color too. He didn't do that in his later work. Everything was a dull gray because he was trying to do photorealism. I should have brought a Rockwell in that makes my point. Let's just see if we can find one. I'm sure Rachel's going to wrap me up in a minute.
Oh,
Uh,
I'll sit and stay as long as I can.
Norman Rockwell. Here. Now, he was experimenting here at least with a bit of style. This Kennedy Center one. It's one of his most famous paintings, but more because it was political,
Hmm.
right? And it's brilliant. I want to give that caveat. It's brilliant, but look how flat it is. You know, and this space and all. I don't know what he was trying to do with this space, but for me, that if it wasn't Norman Rockwell, I would say that this figure here is just magnificent, and be just not moved at all by other than the subject, by the paint itself. The paint isn't moving me at all. That flatness there. I mean, that looks to me like how my work would have looked when I was 18, trying to paint. Just there's no variation in the gray there of that color. It really doesn't look like.
Sometimes it's the subject matter that makes it important too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, 100%. I
Oh,
mean,
that
you've
painting of the guy staring at the ceiling, that third one there.
yeah.
I see that so many times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's another thing. That has emotion to it.
yeah,
So if it hasn't got emotion, it's not going to work. So I really try and get emotion into my paintings all the time. It has to have some theme, betrayal or like what we have here, the cause of justice, justice for all, that kind of thing. It's very moving how they're all looking up. But he's starting to fall into that trap again. Look, see?
Mm-hmm.
This
got ears.
just fitting too much in and killing the composition. We don't need her. We don't need him, you know? We don't need this half a face. For me anyway.
Yeah. Well, for this one, I don't know. Something about him standing out of the crowd like that. I think
Yeah.
it kind of feeds into that idea. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well,
I will
well,
keep
look,
some of that.
yeah, well, I think what you could do is dim it. You could dim the values down of her
Yeah,
face a
yeah,
little.
do that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
her face is so in contrast. It's actually coming forward more than his face is. So
yeah.
that's the problem I see in there.
It's like too
The thing with
crowded.
Yeah.
And here's the problem with the Norman Rockwells. I mean, I think in this era he was still holding on to some of that greatness from the 50s. But at this point here, it almost feels to me what it is. This feels like 100 millimeter lens. The ones that the paparazzi use, where they go way, way back and hide in the trees. And what that does is it brings people in the background forward. It makes their heads bigger than the people in the foreground, which is just bizarre. So you get people in the background bigger than the people in the foreground, which is insane. And I don't think he was noticing any of that in his work anymore because he was tracing straight onto the canvas from the projector. So he had no room for change. He was just doing it right on there. And I think that was the problem with, being wedded to photorealism, is that he lost really what it was all about, which for me is the life and soul of the paint. Oh, where is he? Here. This one in particular, even though it's a wonderful subject, it's Thanksgiving and all that, probably one of my least favorite Rockwells. I'm so down on that. I don't like it, but I want to show why I'm so cautious about where to go next. And if you'd have said to me, I used to do photorealism and make good money at it when I was in advertising. If you'd have said to me in the future, what do you want to keep doing forever? And you have to lock it in, I would have said photorealism, and boy, would I have been just so sad today because I really can't think of anything worse than painting this picture right there. That would, oh my God, how can this be Norman Rockwell? It's as flat as tissue, isn't it?
Yeah, it's too sterile.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that big stupid turkey. I know it's because it is just like someone else has said, Norman, the turkey's important. Make sure that that's center stage. Whereas the human emotion for me is always the most important thing. So this is the epitome of advertising art, where you're doing what someone else wants all the time. And just for me, that is probably my least, that comes to mind anyway, favorite Norman Rockwell painting. Because all I'm looking at is dishes and a turkey. Because that's where your
Yeah,
eye
It's
goes,
dead
right there.
center.
It's dead center. So for me, that's what happened. That's a cautionary tale. And he said it himself. It's not just me. He said it himself. He said, why don't they just let me paint now? And the guy said, well, you're a victim of your own success, Norman. Nobody wants your rough and ready stuff. This was for Stagecoach the movie, where he did he still had it, a load of color live paintings of the cast. He says, let's use them. They were great. And they said, no, we want your photorealism. We'll find it. Rockwell, and we'll call this the end. Rockwell, Stagecoach.
he wasn't a very I haven't dug too far into his personal life, but he was not a particularly happy person, was he? Or
Well, that's
am I
what I
wrong
hear. I
thinking
haven't.
that?
No, I think you're right. I haven't seen. I haven't read the biography, which I think the family were unhappy about. I haven't read that.
Okay.
But here he is. I mean, look at the delight that art brings. So this was a fairly moderate to big star in his time, Mike Connors, being painted by Norman Rockwell live. Look at the joy of that. Look at that. Do you see what art brings? This
It's
is
a
a
magic
guy.
trick or something.
Yeah, that's right. This is a guy that lives in a mansion, I would imagine. Has everything he wants. Look at him looking at that artwork. Nothing matters to him in that moment but that painting. Look at the joy in that, right? That's what art brings. So he did these to get a feel for the actors, and he painted them all. I think, if I remember, he painted Bing Crosby. There's Bing Crosby. Look what it brings you to. You know, Bing Crosby probably means nothing today. Just think Brad Pitt. He was painting Brad Pitt there. Bing Crosby was
Okay.
probably
I know Bing
one
Crosby.
of the yeah, no, okay, okay, because it's Bing Crosby. He looks nothing like Brad Pitt. But in his day, this guy was a gigantic star. There was Bing and Bob Hope,
Uh,
and they made movies, Road 2, things like that. He's a massive star. And for a humble painter to meet Bing Crosby, it's astonishing. But you get to meet these big stars, you get to meet people you
yeah.
would never
That's what I'm
meet.
talking about with like levels of wealth too. Like the people you come across when you're like doing this. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Everyone loves art. Everyone.
Yeah.
That's not the best example there. But I think he was already losing his skills because he was painting so tightly. So there's the tight one he wanted, but he wanted to use that's a terrible example because I've seen a really good one that he did. Maybe he was intimidated, which he can be, by Bing Crosby. Like I say, imagine it's Brad Pitt. That's who was standing in front of him while he was painting. And these are the over photographic looks that he ended up with right there. I guess, is that Anne Margaret? It is.
That's nuts.
I mean, Anne Margaret was a huge star too. She's the one that was always dancing with Elvis in those Elvis movies. Okay, so there you go. So we could do a whole thing on one artist at some point.
Yeah, yeah, it could be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we could pick an artist to do a deep dive into.
Yeah, or a
Yeah,
book or something. Like you were talking about that mastery book. I need
yeah.
to reread that one. I got it somewhere.
Oh yeah, we have to read that. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
going to do
yeah.
that with
You
Marshall.
ever read
We should,
here's one. You ever read The Artist Way?
Oh, that's such a good book.
I see it so much and never picked it up. You recommend it?
Yes.
I've only gotten through like the maybe a third of it, but Melanie really likes it too.
Yeah, I
And
like it.
so
Yeah.
it gives you like exercises to do while you're like reading through it, so it's pretty interesting.
Oh
Like
yeah.
one is automated writing that is pretty cool. Like every day, sit down and just like write for 3 pages. If you don't know what to write, just say I don't know what to write for 3 pages. And the idea is just to like get your idea generator working, like,
Oh
and just
yeah.
practice doing that, and you'll be surprised, like after doing that for a few weeks every day, what kind of stuff you might come up with, I guess.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
that's like
That's a
where it
great
starts from, is that.
yeah. That's a great way to end the podcast, Rachel, because it goes back, it's a story that we have told many times, but it goes back to the fact that if you make a mark, you're already drawing. And if you just stare at it, you're not going to draw. So make a mark. Just make a dirty mark even. As long as you've made something and don't wait for inspiration. That's an amateur thought. I'm going to wait for inspiration. That's an amateur thought. I'll tell you one. It doesn't seem so insane now. Let's go back, not to 2023. Let's go back to, let's say, 2016. So I'm teaching it wasn't a university at this point, it was a community college. I was teaching there, and it was a really good one. So there's a government run one here, which was massive. It's called TAFE. And I taught at their brand new one. They had this just took the cellophane off it, brand new campus. Oh, walked into it, smelled the brand new machines. I was so lucky, walked in. It was down the Gold Coast. It was all kangaroos and stuff. And I went in there and got all these computers, and they let me do my own thing. Patrick is special. Patrick does his own thing. So I went in there and I taught the class. No marking, none of that stuff. Patrick does his own thing, special. And that's what happens when you get good enough. I go, I don't want to do any marking. And you think, well, get out of here. And they go, okay. So the doors are different for people when they want you. I went, what? I thought I was out of here. Okay, we can make that work. We'll make it an elective. You don't have to mark it. Fantastic. So I'm doing this. There's this guy on his own computer. He's just staring at it. I says, call me at any point. And he called me down. He says, I've got this great idea. I says, oh, let me see it. He says, no, it's up here. I says, okay, well, call me when you've got it. He says, that's why I've called you down. I says, why? He says, You see, I've got this, it's the best idea. Now, all around the class, there's all these kids, and they're just banging ideas out, you know? Some of them are awful, some of them are good, but he's not doing anything. Says it's better than everything in this class. When everyone sees this, they'll be astounded. I says, well, show it to us.
Yeah.
He says, it's in here. I said, well, put it on there. He says, that's the question. He says, how do I take it from here and put it on there?
Well, that's the
I
whole
says,
thing right there.
so,
That's it.
honestly, I'm really speechless. But I really didn't. There was a Twilight Zone moment where I was out of body and I didn't know how to answer that without being rude. I says, just draw something. He says, but what? I says, what's in here? He says, yeah, but I haven't got the skills. I says, that's what you're in this class for. You just saw
Yeah,
me
yeah.
demonstrate. He says, but I can't do what you do. I says, it takes a scratch. Make a mark. And he goes, it'll never be the mark that I want. I says, it can only be the mark you want if you make another one after it and keep on making more and more marks. You know what? It's not so insane, though. It's up here. Give me a cinematic scene of aliens flying through
Oh
space.
yeah, yeah. Just type it into the thing.
That's what he wanted.
Dude.
He was a visionary. He was a visionary, and I didn't see it.
Yeah,
He said something so ridiculous that it can only be in the future, and here we are.
yeah,
But he would have still ended up with
yeah.
a rubbish piece of artwork because all those kids have gone on to be really good artists. And one of them has painted. Remember, I taught that we can do is a roundabout here. One of them ended up painting my artwork on the side.
Yeah, we got to talk to her.
Yeah, she ended up, and I didn't know who she was, as being the artist that was the muralist for one of my paintings that was commissioned by Belfast City Council to be flown over from Australia to paint it because she was the best and best muralist, and I didn't even know who she was. I just sent that one. She's the best. I want her. And my sister says, well, she's in Australia. I says, well, fly her over because they had the budget from the Belfast Council, and they flew her over. And she said to me, we were on Zoom together. And I says, really nice to meet you. I love your work. She says, Patrick, you were my teacher. I said, I can't believe it. You dropped dead. So she was one of those kids in the class doing this while he was going, how do I get it from here to there? She was it.
Yeah, some people get stuck there. You just gotta do it.
You just got to do it. And she
Gotta do
listened,
it. Don't
she
stop.
just listened and she didn't stop. She actually did do that. Let's see, Belfast mural. I bet I haven't even got it in Belfast mural right here. I'm definitely going to stop in a second. Okay, but I saw that a second ago. I saw Belfast mural. There it is. There she is there. Look at that.
Yeah.
All the way from Australia. And I didn't even meet, that's my sister's shop. I didn't even meet her because I had left the day before and she came over in the flight just after and went up to the side of this wall and started putting up Dark Dreamer. There's the first iteration of it right there. Now I'll have to find that and bring that in for another session so you can see she's nearly through the underpainting of it there. But we'll come back to that for another time. There's so many things we could talk about. All right, so there we are, and we'll call it the end. Is there any last questions from the YouTube people?
I mean, I haven't been paying attention. What do you think?
Well, Vadum has one more question. Might be a
Go
good
on.
one to end the podcast on.
Okay.
Do you think that you've made your magnum opus?
No, I don't think I ever will. I don't think anyone ever does, unless they stop, unless they just go, that's it. Because I think that Solomon J. Solomon, one of my favorite painters of all time, he did about 4 paintings as far as I can see. I can't find any more. And I think he had that mindset. This is the magnus opus. Because every one of them was brilliant. He robbed us. He absolutely robbed us. Like, for instance, I hadn't painted for 3 years and started painting this picture. And to be honest, I had to not relearn stuff, but I was going, oh, this was so much easier 3 years ago because I was in a flow. Whereas I just stopped and then started again. And by the time I finished that painting, the last day I was painting as fast as I did with as much fluidity as I did 3 years ago. And I went, I wish I'd started here at this point because this was actually not the easiest painting. I wish I had started at this point. And it made me feel like I should do another painting right now. because I know I'll blast it out without going fast. I'll just go through and go, this is what the joy of painting is, which is what you saw in, you know, in that painting at the top there. Wonder if I can go to the bottom again. Let's have a look. So while I'm scrolling here,
Oh,
remember, guys, I'm gonna see that's a meticulous painting there. I love this little one. I gifted this to an artist and he just loved it. Everybody loves art. That was more precious to him, I think, than the big painting that he bought from me because it was a gift. It just came out of nowhere. And I think that made a big impression on him. Of course, that's what people want on their walls is the big hurrah, this big fella here. That was probably my most popular painting at the time. I remember people wanting, give me that. They wanted that again. But I don't want to do the same thing over and over. Even though I ended up with a little bit of that theme in a couple of pictures. Because it's that theme of betrayal and sacrifice. It's all rolled into one. So they're my two major themes. But when I was painting that picture, I really was on a roll. I remember going, this is the easiest, most delightful thing in the world. And I think what it might also be is it's my size. So if it's big, it's easy for me. If it's small, it's incredibly hard. And so I no longer do a 14 or a 20, 18 by 24. I never do that anymore. And I remember Frank Frazetta saying, and he was only in his 50s, he says, how do they expect me to paint like I did in my 20s? I thought, surely you're at your absolute best in your 50s. I think it might have been he was painting too small, because his eyes weren't so great and it was tough for him. Just get bigger brushes and a bigger canvas. So if I paint big, I'm better. And it's one of the few times when you go big, bigger is better. Definitely for me, if I find your size, find the size that you're comfortable with is the main thing. And I was very comfortable at that size. This was so easy to paint because it was just right there. It just was so easy for me. And I can come back from the canvas with a paintbrush like that. I hold it at length like that and do big strokes. It's just easy. All right, but no, I haven't, and I intend to, because I had to buy for this canvas. Uh, it was such a big canvas that they wouldn't let me buy one. What kind of hostage situation is that? You can only have this delivered if you buy two. So I had to buy two canvases to buy one. And so I've got another canvas downstairs that's so big, and I own it. I have to paint on it because I'm still from that day when I had nothing. So why would I just not use that giant canvas? So I'm going to paint a canvas for myself, and we'll see if that's the
your
opus.
Magnus Opus.
Yeah, but there'll be another one. There is always another.
I like that Da
I think,
Vinci quote you got at the bottom right there.
yeah, the noblest pleasure is
Yeah.
the joy of understanding. It really is. It really is. And that's why I died a death doing those prompts and had to go down to the garden and see the sky. Is that there was no understanding. It was just rolling a dice. In fact, they don't even hide it. I was using a new thing called, was it called Whisk or something? Yeah, it's called Whisk. And it says roll the dice. I mean, they're not even hiding it. Roll the dice. You can press a button where you don't have to do anything but press the button. I bet you there's people that kid that says, how do I get it from here to there? He's just clicking the roll the dice button. Roll the dice, roll the dice, roll the dice, roll the dice. Ah, I did this. Did he?
I get very
Here's another.
cynical when I start thinking about this.
No, don't think about it. Remember, you guys cannot lose. You know how to draw.
Yeah.
You know how to think. You've got critical understanding. Rolling a dice isn't critical understanding. There's no understanding. There's no joy of it. Rolling a dice, there's no understanding to it. And I often think of this. I thought, am I stupid or smart? And there was a time when I had to open a lock
Am I
once.
stupid or smart?
I did. I always thought that because when you come from a working class background, you feel stupid because you didn't go to university and you didn't have hoity-toity friends and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And when I met rich people and people who'd been in the university, they were lovely people, and so we tend to demonize them. But I remember having a key. I think it was the Airbnb or something, and I couldn't get in touch. They said we're away, you can't get in touch. And I turned the lock, and I thought they'd give me the wrong key. It wouldn't open the door. So to open a door, you have to turn the key in a certain direction. That's how you open a door. So I was turning it and it wouldn't open the door. It just felt like the bolt was locked. And I just kept staring at it and I'm going, if I didn't have critical thinking, I would go, you always turn it this way to open the door. The lock's broken. That would have been the end of my thinking. And I thought, what if they turned the lock upside down by accident? What if somebody made an error and I turned it counter to how you open the door and it opened? And that's critical thinking. So you think, you ask yourself, why is this not working? Rather than this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. Why is it not working? Is there a possibility that something else has happened here? And that's when I thought, I'm not stupid, I'm smart. So the joy of understanding. I was so happy they put that lock on upside down because it was a revelation for me to go, I'm actually quite smart, and push the door open. So that was me. That was me thinking, you're not the worst. You're not the dullest. What do they say? Saw? What do they say in America?
Not the brightest
Sharpest tool in the
box.
shed.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's dumb as a bag of hammers or something as well. There's all kinds of weird stuff. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Rachel and Melanie, it was actually quite a long podcast. My fault. But
Oh, no, I don't mind. Sorry if I'm a little tired, but thank you.
no, you guys, I keep you up too late. Well, to everyone, thanks for tuning in. And Rachel and Melanie, thanks always. So appreciate you two guys making this a thing. All right. And yeah, Marshall Vandroff next time. And we'll have a big yarn with
We'll work
Marshall.
it out.
Yeah, think about what your thoughts would be for Marshall. He wants I think he wants a structured podcast. We better have some structure for it.
He's a very structured person.
He's a structured person, but I talked to him for at least an hour on the phone, and he's the most wonderful man. He's such a joy to talk to. Okay, so we'll see Marshall next time. I'll let you know when that happens, and it's a sláinte from me and from